Welcome, everyone, to the Kings Classic Fantasy Football Auction here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan with you for the next 3 hours. Now, earlier today, we had the Kings Classic Fantasy Football Drafts. That was very interesting, breaking those all down. 3 drafts. We focused on one. We'll be doing the same here for the auction. Good to be getting into this, our 3rd year here at the Kings Classic. Unfortunately not, of course, at the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, but we have to continue on because, well, Joe, people love the auction format, as we do. A different broadcast for us doing that, and we'll be analyzing the nominations as they come up, keeping an eye on all the numbers, and you can follow along at Sirius XM Fantasy. And by the way, if you missed the Kings Classic Draft earlier, you can hear pick-by-pick coverage and analysis of all of our fantasy football drafts and auctions we have produced in 2020 whenever you want on Sirius XM by searching on the app Fantasy Drafts. Joe, I love auctions because you get to see how teams are constructed, strategies changing, and we have 3 auctions going on. We'll be focusing on one, but it's always fun to compare the values of certain players in these auctions.
Going to be awesome, Matt. And we already have a comparison to make here in the Brown division. Christian McCaffrey goes for $66, the consensus number 1 player and running back on the board. The consensus number 1 wide receiver, Michael Thomas, goes for $47. So there's a $19 difference there. Going to be interesting to see where somebody like Saquon Barkley comes in. He is now up for auction in that draft. Matt, we already have another interesting player to talk about, but we probably should also get a discussion in here with Mr. Bob Lung, shouldn't we?
Yeah, let's bring Bob Lung in right now. He's the man that runs this whole show, as always, and he was in the draft earlier, but has been running the Kings Classic here. So, Bob, a little rundown of what we're getting into here in this auction today.
Well, hey, thanks again for having me, guys. It's always honored that SiriusXM is a part of this and supports this, and we appreciate that. And so thanks again, and thanks to you and Joe for, as always, being the cordial host. You guys do an amazing job. But, you know, it's this is an interesting one. You know, we've always done it at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's always better to do an auction live because you can kind of see the faces and see the cringes and, you know, kind of look at that poker face, whatever kind of scenario. Here, you're just clicking buttons. So it's not as much fun, but it's still great that we're continuing on with it, and excited to Kings Classics in year 3. Added a half international division for the Dawson division. So we got guys from Australia, South Africa, Mexico, all over the place, UK, Canada. So that's pretty cool that we're now taking this to the world. So we're excited.
Bob, so what was the idea between having a snake and an auction, and what have you noticed throughout the time in the Kings Classic? Do you see teams that are constructed similarly because you put both the same drafters are in both, or do you see guys taking drastically different approaches?
Well, I think, you know, obviously when you're in an auction, you know, when you're in a snake draft, if you have the first 4 picks, you're going to get one of the big 4. If you're in an auction, you might get 2 of the first 4 picks, just like Dave Richards just did, by drafting both Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. So he's already spent $127. And so, you know, that's what makes this fun, isn't it?
Absolutely, and this is a lineup of 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, 3 flex spots, 16 roster spots, 4 points for passing touchdown, 1 point full PPR, and we did the draft earlier, Bob, and this is something, especially I think in the auction, those 3 flex spots, running back, wide receiver, tight end, eligible flex spots, really, for lack of a better term, gives you some serious flexibility. We talked a lot about best player available when we were doing the drafts earlier, but for the auction, it really allows you to kind of spend as you want to with those flex spots.
Absolutely. And it, you know, and that's what makes it fun. That's what we did it this year. We took out the kickers and the defenses and said, you know what, let's go with 3 flex and see how much fun it's going to be. You know, it's always tough enough to pick your wide receiver 3, but when you're picking your flex 3, which could be your wide receiver 6, that makes it entertaining. So I'm looking forward to this.
So
All right,
how
Bob.
difficult is it to be doing an interview while you're bidding, by the way, Bob?
Yeah,
well, bidding, Bob?
The good thing is I'm probably not going to bid on the big boys. I'm kind of a, build the roster kind of more of a depth scenario. I don't do stars and scrubs very much unless like somebody just falls. So I wasn't planning on picking these guys, putting this kind of money out for these guys anyway. So it's all good.
Well, Bob, we'll let you get back to it so you don't miss out on anybody. Thanks, as always, for running this thing, and good luck in this auction.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. Bob Long, Big Guy Fantasy, running the Kings Classic for the third year. Bob, I need a shirt, by the way. I didn't tell him that. Joe got the shirt. I didn't get the shirt. Might have got lost in the mail.
I bought mine, Matt.
Oh, what a pro. I apologize.
No freebies this year.
I will get the shirt. I will make sure it happens. So as we will talk about this here, Joe, just a quick rundown once again. This is a 14-team full point PPR auction. As I said, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, and 3 flex spots that could be a running back, wide receiver, or a tight end. Saw it in the draft earlier we did for the Kings Classic, the snake draft, but it really does, Joe, give you flexibility. And maybe that's why Dave Richard from CBS Sports has already dropped $128 on Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. 4 nominations in, he's got both of those guys.
So I am going to be stunned to see what his team is going to look like, Matt, because I am going to be honest. I don't know. I don't want to give Bob a long strategy away, but I actually think I would be building my team the opposite of that way. First and foremost, I did my auction draft plan, and I'm not calling out Dave because I'm fascinated to see how his team turns out. When I did my auction draft plan, I said, I'm not a stars and scrubs guy anyway, but I said this year, I think it's even more ill-advised, a hyper-fragile strategy in and of itself. But in a pandemic year, guys can miss games. Guys could get injured more because they haven't been working out as much. I mean, it's a really, really difficult thing for me to support this year. But I think personally, look at this, Matt. We're already looking at these prices for the top running backs. 66 for McCaffrey, 62 for Barkley, 60 for Cook, 63 for Elliott, 60 for Kamara. I really like Edwards-Helaire for 43, by the way, given
the
difference
thing
there. Yeah.
If you look at the first round of the draft we did, okay, Kamara and McCaffrey and Barkley and Zeke, they're all going to be the top 4 picks in some way, shape, or form. So Zeke for 63, Barkley for 62, McCaffrey for 66, Kamara for 60. All close enough, right? All close enough, all the top prices. Now, the picks that were after those guys in the draft, Dalvin Cook, 60, okay, him and Kamara close enough. But Edwards-Helaire went in that draft a couple picks later, $43. You're talking about, just to compare the next running back, a $17 difference. And whether you think Helaire is a top 6 pick or a top 12 pick or a top 8 pick, that's a big difference when in the draft, the regular snake draft, we're only talking about a matter of a couple picks. That's a $17 difference. Michael Thomas in another position, $47. That's a $13 difference. Joe, that's a massive number. That could be, your last guy in your lineup or more than that. That could be the difference between going, I only have a couple bucks to spend on this sleeper. Or I have 13 extra dollars to spend. Yeah. That could be a supreme upgrade over another player down the road.
And I'm going to tell you how I would be, just reading this room early, I'm going to tell you how I would be building my team. These guys going for now, Edwards-Helaire, I think there's probably a couple of people in this league who are punching themselves at letting him go for $43. So I don't want, that's just a good value for Dom Centurino. Okay. That might not happen again, but reading this room already, I am telling you the strength of my team, the foundation of my team, given that you have to start 3 wide receivers and you can start 3 flexes, Matt, I am going to be going for wide receivers in this draft. That is what I would do. Look who just came off the board. Jim Coventry gets AJ Brown for $29. Robert Woods goes for $25. I would be just eating up guys at those prices, and then I'll see what slips through the cracks at running back. But just reading this room, the running backs are getting absolutely bid up, justifiably so. But man, it's going to be fascinating, Matt, to see how some of these running back heavy teams are built.
So here's what's interesting about that, and I'm typically with you, and I probably, as I see these prices, it's going to make even more sense. I will spend up more. I find myself spending up more for the wide receivers. But then by comparison, do you really even have to do that if you look at the running back numbers? Michael Thomas for $47. That's the same price in two of the auctions. His other price is $43. I'm going to take that all day long and save 12, 13 bucks, whatever it may be, versus other, quote, first round picks, if you will, with Kamara, McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cook. That's a big difference right there. And then it's going to allow me to spend up elsewhere. The flex spots, as you mentioned, if my top players on my roster, in my starting lineup, are going to be cheaper by 13, 14, 15 bucks, that's going to allow me to balance out and not have to do stars and scrubs, Joe, because maybe you do have to do stars and scrubs if you pay up for Kamara or McCaffrey, but you may not have to go in that direction as much if your top player is Michael Thomas, which any of us would be happy to start our team with Michael Thomas, yet it's a difference of at minimum 13 bucks here versus some of these other running backs.
Matt, he is at it again. Bob Harris has bought a quarterback, but it's a really good price. Patrick Mahomes for 19 bucks.
Interesting start here for Bob. So he goes 19 bucks for Patrick Mahomes, $25 for Robert Woods. I don't know, Joe. This is another. We keep bringing up the top quarterbacks. This will be a regular, I think, discussion on this channel throughout draft season. When you see Mahomes and probably Lamar Jackson, those are the two guys, where you see them go in this auction, where you see them go in our industry drafts, probably won't always be comparable to your home leagues. They're probably going to go earlier. Mm-hmm. They're probably going to go for more money. I'm going to keep an eye on Mahomes, Joe, as I look at one of the other auctions. Mahomes went for 21. Jackson's up at 23. And these other ones, they have not been there's Lamar Jackson at 26 in another auction. But in the one we're focusing on, Mahomes at 19 bucks, I don't think that's going to be the norm for our listeners at home.
Yeah, no, it's just not, and that's one of the things where Matt, you just have to keep that in mind when you're following along with this. Mahomes is going to get, as a matter of fact, Mahomes is going to be one of the first players I nominate in my home auctions because I'm not going to be in on that price, and I want the money out of the room. That's it. So
it bleeds $19 out of the money. Yeah, it's a fine number, but I love that idea. Are there going to be people that you're not going to be in on, that you put up because right away it's going to take away big money? I mean, I could see a Todd Gurley going up, a Fournette going up, maybe a Mahomes, maybe a Lamar Jackson, where Joe, it only needs to be like 2 or 3 people. And then they just go back and forth, and 19 becomes 25, 26, 27 very quickly. To Bob Harris here, Joe. He's gonna
plan in action,
Chiefs,
Matt.
Invest in the Chiefs. Bob just wants to get back on the air with us. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. Mahomes for 19, Robert Woods for 25, and as I said, invest in the Chiefs. Travis Kelce for 32 bucks, Joe. Already feels like an outstanding price to me.
Yeah, that is a really good price. Now, I'm looking around at some of the other drafts. Matt, I think 32 is an outstanding price for Kelce. But look at him in the Blanda division. Travis Kelce goes for 26 to Dennis Clausen of Rotoballers. And in the Dawson, Tom Brawley of Fantasy Points gets him for 29 bucks. Matt, I think that's 3 really good prices for Travis Kelce.
Just wipe away tight end. That's all you have to do and go, what's this price tag? For some reason, even in these industry drafts, Travis Kelce is a wide receiver 1, right? We know that's what he classifies as. And yet the price is so much different, and it doesn't have to be. And you have the flexibility. Because theoretically, Joe, you can start, 5 tight ends, whatever, as I pull this back up here.
In theory, 4. Yeah.
You can start 4 tight ends. You have 3 wide receivers. You only have to start 2 running backs. You're paying $32 for a primetime player on your team, regardless of the position. That is a value. 30 to anything. Joe, Kelce could go up to 45. I'd be fine with it because he does play at that level. I'm not saying you have to spend that.
No.
Maybe you want to spend elsewhere. But 32 bucks is a steal for Travis Kelce, and we've seen cheaper prices besides that, which is unbelievable. And there is a way, folks, as you're listening at home, to take advantage of the position. Now, your draft may be different. We have to say that, Joe. You may not have 3 flex spots. But even if you have 1, even if you only have 1 tight end, it's still worth it. Because it doesn't matter where the points come from. Now, in some leagues, tight ends might be worth more if they're 1.5 PPR. And then, Joe, you're probably not going to get Travis Kelce at 32 bucks.
No, I mean, that's a great price in comparison to some of these top running backs, Matt. And I'm telling you, my initial strategy for now, that it looks like that would be paying off. Devontae Adams goes for $43, and it's interesting that Dom Cintorino from Fantasy Data got Devontae Adams for $43 because we were just singing his praises, and maybe he lucked out by getting Edwards-Helaire for $43. Well, he had probably maybe $15 extra than he probably should have. He's able to pay up for Devontae Adams, who's got a good shot to lead the NFL in targets. So now with maybe some of the money he saved by not paying up for like a Dalvin Cook type of guy, he's able to go get a high-end number one wide receiver.
Hopefully you're catching the video live stream of this event powered by Fantasy Alarms to see us and the results, and participants on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy. Always be following at SiriusXM Fantasy. Hey, we are just getting rolling here on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, our third year covering the Kings Classic, and we are at the auction right now. So plenty more to come. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan back after this. And we pick it back up here on the live stream, Joe. And I always like to see here, as I guess we're about almost 20 nominations in at this point in time, who's throwing some money out there and what names are going out there. As we look at the Brown draft, Kamara, Henry, McCaffrey, Barkley, Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, Adams, Mahomes, Robert Woods, Kelsey, Dalvin Cook, A.J. Brown, Michael Thomas, Zeke Elliott, Austin Eckler, Matthew Stafford, and is the lowest of the low in this group. There is no patience whatsoever. Everybody is throwing out big names. Money is being spent already. Colby Conway from Fantasy Alarm has dropped 60 on Kamara, 42 on Henry. We mentioned Dave Richard from CBS Sports, 66 on McCaffrey, 62 on Barkley. Those are half of the budgets, Joe, gone already. A $200 salary cap for multiple participants is already gone. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to go get your guys, that's one thing. But then there's others. Corey Parsons, Brad Evans, Jeff Mance, Howard Bender, Pat Doherty have not spent a buck yet.
Yep. Interesting. Sitting back with some of these prices, Matt, there's still some really good players left on the board. So sitting back, it probably was a little bit advisable. But Bob Long said he was gonna sit back a little bit, but even he got in on the bidding. But he actually got one of my favorite values in relative to the rest of the board so far in Austin Eckler at $36. I mean, Austin Eckler. He went for $30 less than Christian McCaffrey went for. So very interesting strategy. And he gets Matthew Stafford for $4. That's usually the range where I'm paying for my quarterback, in that $1 to $5 range.
Yeah, and the quarterback values, which is something we will talk more about throughout the show today, the quarterback values will always come down to what's left, right? Do you need to spend $10? Can you wait? Can a Matthew Stafford, Joe, might depend where he goes. Someone at the bottom end of the tier. Tom Brady could go for 8. He can go for 2. It just depends on who has quarterbacks already. A 14-teamer, maybe there's a little bit more bidding even towards the end. If someone says, well, I can go get 2. I can go get 2 for a grand total of $6. That's a possibility, and you can get away with that. But the quarterback values towards the end of maybe your perceived quarterback 1 tier will change depending on when they get nominated. For everybody else, I think we'll see, for the most part, your RB1s, your wide receiver 1s, your tight end 1s. I think the values will be within a few dollars of each other. The quarterback ones can vary a bit.
Yeah, they will. Let's look at Lamar Jackson coming off the board, by the way, Matt. He goes for $20, $1 more than Patrick Mahomes. Still, Andy Barons gets him. Still a defensible strategy. Yeah, I do want to point out for Andy Barons, though, I believe he opened his draft in the snake draft without a running back through the first 3 rounds. He goes the complete opposite here. His RB1 in the snake draft was Mark Ingram in the 4th round. He builds his team differently in the auction, Matt. He gets Ezekiel Elliott for 63. So already a very drastically different strategy in play for one of the players in the draft.
And welcome back on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. This is the Kings Classic Auction. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan with you here. I love talking auctions as we see different strategies. And we were just talking on the live stream, Joe, because if you didn't catch it earlier today, we had the Kings Classic snake drafts. And we're comparing, obviously, not necessarily where players are going, but you see first round values or players that have that first round price tag, where they went in the first round of the drafts, and then where the prices are going here. But we're also seeing, because it's the same participants, different ways to do things. Joe, and you were just talking about a different strategy and a different team construction from earlier today in the draft versus this auction right now.
Yeah, so Andy Behrens, who didn't draft a running back through the first 3 rounds, I guess went about as 0 RB as anybody did in the snake draft in the Brown division, with his number 1 running back being Mark Ingram. Complete opposite here. He spent $63 on Ezekiel Elliott, so he wanted to build very clearly 2 different style of teams. He also gets Lamar Jackson for $20, so he's going opposite the way he built his team in the snake draft.
As we're looking at some of the quarterback price tags, I already said that Mahomes has gone for 19 in the Brown auction that we were following. He's gone for 21 in the Blanda, and he is not off the board as of yet in the Dawson. However, Lamar Jackson's off the board there at 26. He's gone for 23, and he's gone for 20. So you see the variance in the numbers of Lamar Jackson. And Joe, this is also a price tag that is being set early. This is not waiting for Lamar Jackson. Everybody still has big money to spend. So we've seen a range of $20 to $26 for Lamar Jackson, only 25 minutes into this auction, all these auctions.
I think it's also fascinating, Matt, that we saw the Brown division playing chicken on the quarterbacks in the snake. Remember, Lamar Jackson was a 5th round pick in a 14-team league. Hate to tell you folks at home, that ain't going to happen in your league. He also goes for the cheapest price of the 3 auction divisions in the Brown division at $20. So not drastically cheaper than 26 in the Dawson and 23 in the Blanda, but still it is laying bare to us that this is the division, the Brown division, that is valuing quarterbacks the least.
Yeah, 3 quarterbacks off the board so far, and only, Joe, 5 wide receivers off the board so far. So nominations, if you don't know this in auctions, you can nominate anyone at any time when you are up. It does not matter. Now, we don't have kickers or defenses, should note that here. But if you want to nominate, Sony Michel right now, you can go ahead and do so. You might get him for $1. There might be those kind of players. I know, Joe, some of us, I kind of believe in this, kind of like to sit on those guys. That we really want to get those later targets, because you'd like to have less people involved in the bidding. You'd like money to be knocked down across the board, so you don't have to pay up for maybe who's someone that might be a perceived sleeper. But so far, it's all big names. A couple of teams have yet to spend $1. Now, that's an idea. Sometimes, Joe, there are groups of players, and I've done this as well. Here's a group of 5 running backs. I want to get one of them. I'm going to make sure I get 2 of them. Here's a group of these wide receivers. And I've done this, and I would do it again. I'll do it this year. Here's a group of 5 wide receivers I really like. I'm going to absolutely make sure I get 2 of them. Now, If other players come up on the board, doesn't mean I'm out on them, but maybe I've hit a cap on some guys. And also, to that point, I think you have to adjust cap, Joe. If you say, I've actually saved, I thought I was going to spend 40 on Kelsey, I got him for 32. There's $8 to play with there.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you're overbidding on anyone, because the money left on the table does you no good whatsoever.
Matt, I said this in my auction draft plan as well. It is criminal to leave $5 or more on the board in an auction, and the only person you're robbing is yourself. That's the person you're robbing, because when you look at Matt, it honestly makes me ill when I see somebody leave like $12 on the board, because you're going to look through your entire auction and you are going to be able to count on your fingers and toes the number of startable players who went for that $12. And in some cases you might have gotten 2. So you don't want to be stupid with your money. You don't. But you also have to be reasonably aggressive. Like, if you wait for values to fall to you, your team's going to stink. I mean, so maybe in this league, some of the guys who haven't been spending early are are going to benefit, but we'll have to see. Curtis Patrick, Howard Bender, two teams that do not yet have a player. Well, the problem is, Matt, eventually the real high-end players, they do dry up. So how can you just build a roster with low-priced, mediocre players? I'm not so sure of that. I'm not a stars and scrubs guy, but I think you have to be selectively aggressive.
Well, think of it this way, right? We were talking about in the Kings Classic draft earlier today, those 13th, 14th, 15th round picks. These are going to be $1 players in your auctions. If they don't work out, you're going to cut them loose. So why worry about those last couple of bucks for players that may be off your roster in week one when that could be the difference between an upgrade at another position, and a significant one? If you're looking at your board and you're saying, I like Amari Cooper, but I like Chris Godwin a lot more. That could be the difference of a couple of dollars. That could be $4 or $5. And if you leave that on the board, you look back and go, I missed out on a guy I really wanted to save a couple of bucks. You're going to have more of those situations than, man, I wish I had a couple more dollars for this sleeper that's going to be the fifth wide receiver on my roster.
Yeah, it's exactly the way you want to look. Matt, if you really want to play, and that's why I said the importance of tiering, like you were getting to, like you said, it's a group, it's a tier, whatever you want to call it, a basket of players. Okay, I'm not going to get all 5 of these guys, but I better get one. You have to say that to yourself. That's why you have to monitor what's going on, because you also have to know who else is in your room and who else might be sitting there thinking, I need that player. So that's part of the strategy of auctions that I really like.
I want to know the strategy that I'm in on so far, and shows you the difference of how you can spend and still find yourself with a great team. Michael Thomas, $47. Chris Godwin, $34. $81 spent so far, Joe, by Mike Clay, with arguably the number one fantasy wide receiver and somebody who's probably at the back end of that tier or the mid-range, depending on how you think of Chris Godwin. But, Joe, that cost Mike Clay so far $81. He has put 2 high-end players into his lineup and hasn't spent half of his budget on those guys. He has not touched running back yet. That's his call. And to throw you some names out there who have gone: McCaffrey for 66, Kamara for 60, Henry for 42, Barkley for 62, Edwards-Helaire for 43, Mixon for 49, Chubb for 52. There's an interesting one. We'll get to that in a second. Dalvin Cook for 60, Miles Sanders for 42, Zeke for 63, Eckler for 36. So a lot of that RB1 tier is gone. But I am a big proponent of in auctions, Joe. I'd rather spend up on wide receivers and get somebody in maybe that low-end RB1 or high-end RB2 that I think could make the jump as my lead guy. Not as important when you have 3 flex spots. So Mike Clay spending $81 feels very nice right now to me.
I agree with that. I also want to point out Miles Sanders goes for $42. I like that price for him to Pat Doherty. Looking at the other divisions, Miles Sanders goes for $48 in the Blanda division to Darren Armani, and in the Dawson division, he goes for $49 to Tom Brawley. So $42 for Miles Sanders is a really nice price. I kind of have him in that range. I think you're going to have to spend up for him, but I like that price for Pat Doherty there. Again, is there an $18 difference between Dalvin Cook and Miles Sanders? That's up to you to decide. So I think that's a really interesting price.
Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon, Joe, are the 2 names I want to focus on, because Joe Mixon was a first half player, first half of the first round draft pick when we did the draft earlier today. He goes for $49. That's totally fine. Nick Chubb, who people love as a player. We love him as a player, but Kareem Hunt is there. There's no doubt about that. And Nick Chubb goes for $52. Now, maybe that was Jeff Manns, and we can hopefully talk to him about this. Maybe that was Jeff Manns saying, I love Nick Chubb. I'm getting Nick Chubb. And I don't have a problem with that. There might be certain players, and you have the ability to do this because you control the budget. You can go as high as you want or as low as you want in a player. He might have said, I am getting Nick Chubb. I have not seen Nick Chubb go in front of Joe Mixon very often in drafts.
No. Or Miles Sanders on occasion, but Chubb $10 more expensive than Miles Sanders. Now, that's a player Jeff Manns loves, clearly. $16 more expensive than Austin Eckler love? I'm not sure about that. But, really, really interesting pick there.
Now, I will say this. if you think Nick Chubb went for too much, if Jeff came in with a plan of I'm going to spend this at quarterback and he got Kyler Murray for 10, maybe that was 13, 14 bucks. Maybe that was maybe he just saved $4 and you go then overspend. I put that in quotes because it doesn't necessarily mean you overspent. But maybe if you saved a couple of bucks on somebody else that you valued at 15, 16 bucks, you go throw that at somebody you really want. There is nothing that stops you from doing such a thing. As we look at some of these other teams here, Joe, Bob Long has spent $9 on his quarterback position between Drew Brees and Matthew Stafford. Dare I say, if he waited, that could have been a $6 price tag between the two. But there you go. $9 for two quarterbacks. Murray goes for 10. Mahomes goes for 19. It just shows you how you can put these teams together differently. I could see Bob just kind of going back and forth with these two quarterbacks based on matchups every week.
I think Andy Behrens, by the way, of Yahoo, knew he was going to have to go a little cheaper at wide receiver, given what he did at quarterback and running back. $20 for Lamar Jackson, $63 for Ezekiel Elliott. Gets a nice little value here. Tyler Boyd for $14. That's cost certainty in a player who's going to get 100+ targets this year. I kind of like that price there a little bit early. And of course, it's always fun in an auction when you see somebody like Tyler Boyd go off the board before Mike Evans and Kenny Galladay, and all those big name guys who are still available. Tyreek Hill's still out there. So interesting little buy there. Odell Beckham, I think, just went
$29. And here's a team that you can look at. Dalvin Cook for 60, David Johnson for 28, A.J. Brown for 29, Beckham for 29. So Jim Coventry had to spend up to get Dalvin Cook. Not a surprise at that number. David Johnson goes for $32 cheaper as his second running back as it stands right now. Whether you like Johnson or not, that clearly puts him a clear tier, probably two behind Dalvin Cook, if not more than that. But Brown and Beckham, Joe, for $29 a piece, not having to spend up at that wide receiver position, probably getting, Joe, two high-end wide receiver twos with upside in Brown and Beckham for a total of $58.
I really like that. I do not like the David Johnson buy for $28, but that's a player bias. I'm not in on David Johnson this year.
That's the same thing with me.
I'm just not going to argue with. I'm not going to argue with the roster build because you get AJ Brown and Odell Beckham for less than you paid for your number one running back. To me, again, it is obvious how I would be building my roster right now, and Mike Clay has put that in action.
34 nominations into the Brown auction, which we are focusing, and one team has yet to spend $1. That's Corey Parsons from SI. Curtis Patrick is on the board now with Josh Allen for a mere $6. So there's where you can go with this. 34 nominations and a bunch of big names are off the board. And Corey Parsons, as he did last year, which I think worked out nicely, sitting back and being patient. We have plenty more to come. You be patient because I'll be back with more. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan right here on the Kings Classic Auction, Sirius XM, Fantasy Sports Radio. And back on the live stream here, I was just talking about Corey Parsons not getting on the board. I remember Joe talking to him about this last year, and he kind of said, I have my guys. I know who I want to get. There's a lot of big names off the board right now, Joe. We are working into that second tier of running backs, that RB2 group. Maybe you think there's some upside there, but Corey's not touching anybody right now. Wide receivers off the board: Adams, Woods, Cooks, A.J. Brown, Beckham, Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Juju. So there's a mix there of ones and twos. So there's still plenty of talent on the board. And at tight end, Kittle for 34, Kelsey for 32. You're going to drop off a little bit on the tier now, or maybe more, depending on how you think of those guys. Corey still has a lot to work with here. Sitting with $200. The next closest to him is Curtis Patrick from RotoViz with $160. So he's got a $40 advantage now with the hammer.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see on who he's going to play. This is what happens, though, Matt. Doesn't it always happen where the guy who sits back and waits the longest, then all of a sudden gives you like 2-3 buys really quickly? He goes through them. Hey, Matt, we're live right here on the live stream, right?
We are.
We're live. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure we weren't doing it on air because there has been a fly in my line of sight, which has been driving me nuts for about 10 minutes.
This will be like the Breaking Bad
Hold on,
episode.
Guys.
We got you. Joe is killing a fly in the live stream.
Yes. All right.
Congratulations for being here for that. Much quicker than Walter White taking care of the fly. So thank you very much. We appreciate that.
That's, by the way, I know some people hate that episode. I think it's one of the best episodes of Breaking Bad.
It's a polarizing episode. I've certainly seen people say I'd skip it.
It's a character builder, right? That episode. Anyway, I guess as we're talking about character building, there are people here who are still. Now, by the way, I have to point something out. There are Curtis Patrick. We were saying he was one of the last players to draft somebody. Not true. He actually got George Kittle early. The board we were looking at was a little skew, but he got him for $34. Same range as Travis Kelce, $32. So a solid buy there, Matt. And as a matter of fact, I would say the top tight ends kind of values on this board.
Welcome back to Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. This is our coverage of the Kings Classic auction 3 years in a row. Glad to be with you here, Matt Camp and Joe Dolan. And we are monitoring this as you can as well. Follow along at Sirius XM Fantasy. Take a look at all of the boards. We have 3 auctions going on. We are focusing on the Brown auction. And, of course, you want to hear pick-by-pick coverage and analysis of all the fantasy football drafts, including the Kings Classic draft, snake draft we did earlier, the drafts, the auctions, everything we've produced in 2020, wherever you want with the Sirius XM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. And of course, as I said, search Fantasy Drafts. You can hear the Kings Classic draft that we did earlier today. Same scoring rules, by the way, in this auction. 16 players, 10 starters, 6 bench spots, 3 injured list spots as well, a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end. And the very important note here, 3 flex positions. Running back, wide receiver, and tight end could fill those spots. 4 points for passing touchdown, 6 for rushing receiving. It is a full point PPR. So as you're looking at the board here and maybe trying to use it as a little bit of research, a little bit of help for your auction or maybe your draft, just seeing how teams are put together. The 3 flex spots is very key to note because, yes, flexibility gives you more flexibility, but 3 flex spots allows that much more variance in how you build these rosters. So think about that as you're using this for your own research. How does your home league, your personal league, your whatever league you're in, what is the scoring system? What is the roster lineup and requirements work there? Because, Joe, it does make a big difference. 1 flex spot's one thing. 3 flex spots can make you just load up. For instance, you might say, I'm going to spend big on 6 wide receivers. I'm going to load up that position, and I know I'm going to hit the waiver wire running back anyway, so I'm not necessarily going to punt that position, but it won't be a high priority to me. That works just as well, because as I say all the time, it doesn't matter where your points come from your starting lineup.
Matt, our guy Corey Parson has selected a player, and it's a good one, but at a reasonable price, $30 for Calvin Ridley.
$30 for Calvin Ridley. Let's get some comparisons there, Joe. Robert Woods for 25, A.J. Brown for 29, Tyler Boyd for 14, Juju for 32, Beckham for 29, Godwin for 34. So there's some names going around that range. Paying $30, Joe, at this point for Calvin Ridley, I kind of feel like, knowing Corey like I do, I feel like that was a guy he wanted to go get, and he was willing to pay maybe a few bucks more for Calvin Ridley. Adam Thielen, by the way, also in that range at $30. A fair price, but going to get him for $30 as his first guy tells me that was somebody that Corey probably had on his target list.
Yeah, and he's got $170 left to spend on CeeDee Lamb.
You're saying he's a Cowboys fan or something?
Oh, yeah, just a little bit. Des Bryant might find his way onto this roster too. Matt, another interesting guy. Remember we were saying Andy Behrens, who in the snake draft drafted Mark Ingram as his RB1. He's got him again. He's got him as his RB2 this time, and for $16. Now, I don't love Ingram this year, but at $16, I would rather have Mark Ingram for $16. Frankly, I'd rather have Mark Ingram straight up than Leonard Fournette. That's my personal preference this year. But Mark Ingram for $16,
by the way,
$16 when Leonard Fournette goes for $30, that's a pretty darn good buy. And again, look where that $14 went. You can see it on Andy Barron's team. Mark Ingram goes for $16. Tyler Boyd goes for $14. That decision is simple to me, Matt. Do you want Ingram and Boyd for $30, or do you want Leonard Fournette for $30? That's an easy call from my perspective.
So I want to bring that back up because I try to look at positions, and it's not as big of a deal with all the flex spots, but it's not necessarily, Joe, the value of one player. It's maybe how much you spent on your starting lineup as a whole, maybe one position. So I look at this as he has spent $79 on his top 2 running backs. whereas Christian McCaffrey went for 66. Now, that's on David Richards' team, who also has Barkley for 62. Dom Cintorino spent 43 on Edwards-Helaire and 28 on Le'Veon Bell. Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry are on the same team for a combined $102 to Colby Conway. So, Joe, he has dropped $79 into, as of now, his top 2 running backs. Now, and he could go spend up more elsewhere. Maybe, Joe, he said, well, I got Boyd for $6 cheaper than I thought. I can go do that. Lamar Jackson for $20. Maybe he thought he saved a few bucks there. But now maybe it gives him some flexibility. So he only has the one wide receiver on the team. I'm going to assume, Joe, that with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, with 13 wide receivers, not all in the wide receiver 1 tier, but with 13 wide receivers off the board, Andy Behrens now, Joe, can probably go spend up and get a wide receiver 2 or a tight end that he wants, because he's probably saved a few bucks here and there so far. And maybe he thinks he's okay with Mark Ingram at $16 as his quote second.
Yeah, and that's fine. Well, I mean, he clearly thinks he's okay as his RB2 because he went with him as his RB1 in the last league. So, I mean, that's not ideal, but yeah, I think that's an interesting. His roster is one of the most interesting I'm looking at thus far. Corey Parson went and bought another player, Todd Gurley, for $22, Matt. And again, probably not a player I'm bidding on, but that it's not an awful price. Let's see here. Bob Harris
Akers went for $20, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Gurley's just a guy, Matt, who's not on my draft board, and it's hard for me to reconcile that. And I'm trying to separate my personal biases out here, because $22 is not a bad price compared to where people might think he's going. I just personally would not have spent that, because I wouldn't be bidding on Todd Gurley.
So there could be players that you nominate early because you don't want them and you know others will, and you'll go let them spend their money. There could also be players that you don't nominate that go up and you go, I'm not a Todd Gurley guy. But I don't think, Joe, and maybe you do this, and I would be lying if I said I don't do this. You see him go up and you go, I'm not touching him, and you barely even pay attention. Sometimes you want to get in those guys. Now, Todd Gurley, I guess what you're saying, Joe, is you're not paying $22 for Todd Gurley.
I mean, I'll take Todd Gurley for like $5.
Right, that's the thing.
But I'm not going to get him at that price.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not actively getting involved, and $22 is, you can go spend that, especially this early on in the auction.
I'd probably pay up to like $10 for him, because at that point I'm like, he's going to be my RB3, and you can certainly do worse than that. But yeah, it's just at this point in the auction, I don't want to invest money early in an auction in a player I don't want. And
exactly.
If that player, like for instance, I said I'm out on David Johnson. All right. Well, if David Johnson goes for $15, well, then maybe I'm in on him. But I would have to wait for that to happen. So
that might be a reason, Joe, to just shut yourself out. If you see a guy you absolutely don't want go up that early, you're like, I have other things to take care of. Plenty of things to take care of on this roster. Sometimes, Joe, for your own good, you just hit the pass button if you can. So you make sure you can't get in on somebody you don't want to spend money early. If it is later, like you said, and the value looks pretty good, all right, maybe it's worth it then. But not at a time when maybe you've only filled 3 or 4 spots on your roster already, when we're only 46 nominations into this auction. Plenty more coverage coming your way. As I said, 46 nominations in, and you're seeing a variety of players. It starts to get a little bit different now. Daniel Jones just went for $2. Raheem Mostert just went for $18. T.Y. Hilton for $22. Julio for $44. Josh Jacobs, who I don't think we've talked about at all today, went for $48. So we're going to see some variance there. We'll start to compare these to the other auctions that are going on. So more coverage coming your way. This is Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm Matt Camp. That's Joe Dolan. We'll be back with more of the Kings Classic Auction. And Joe's going to take this for a second, because I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, hi, everybody. I don't think I have any insects to kill on this segment, although I see one floating around. I haven't put blinds in my new office yet, so everything outside is distracting me, which is not good when I'm on air. But Pat Doherty, Tyreek Hill goes for $46. As a matter of fact, actually the second most expensive wide receiver thus far, behind only Michael Thomas, who went for $47. But Hill is, as we well know, a game changer. I wanted to call to mind Leonard Fournette prices. Leonard Fournette goes for 30 in the Brown. He goes for 35 in the Blanda. So it is very clear that I think the rest of the world is valuing Leonard Fournette more highly than I do. So I have to keep that in mind. I don't believe he is off the board yet in the Dawson draft. So no, I'm not seeing him off the board there. If going back to the Brown, let's some other guys who are in those middle tiers. I'm looking at some price comparisons. 25 for David Montgomery. That's probably pretty fair, although I know everybody's laughing at Brad Evans getting him yet again. So 25 for Montgomery. Let's see here. Who else? He's not off the board in the Blanda, but he goes for 20 in the Dawson, which is a pretty good price there for somebody who I think is a number 2. Matt, are you back? You back?
We are.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I was just comparing some prices. So David Montgomery goes for 25, which I think that's a relatively fair price. But he also went for 20 in the Dawson draft, which I also thought was a really good price.
Let's compare some more in just a minute. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan back with you here at Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. This is our third year of coverage of the Kings Classic auction. Talked about the Kings Classic draft earlier. If you missed our coverage of that earlier today, you can go and hear it on demand with the Sirius XM app by searching Fantasy Drafts, where you can find all of the drafts and auctions we have produced in 2020. Joe and I were just talking on the live stream about some comparisons. Joe, you're just talking about David Montgomery, who was a name that I'm interested to see how he lands, not only in these auctions today, but in drafts as well. I wasn't a huge fan of him last year. I think I ended up being right. I was higher on Miles Sanders, which obviously everybody is now this year. But Joe, I wonder if there's the grudge being held against David Montgomery. Price tags today so far seem fairly fair when it comes to David Montgomery.
Brad Evans does not have a grudge against David Montgomery. I think he has more Stockholm syndrome than a grudge against David Montgomery. I think Brad was all in on Montgomery last year, and I think it was for a similar price to this point. So, he
$25.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's completely fine. It's a fine price. And here's the thing about Montgomery. Number one, he slimmed down. Apparently, his body fat is way down. Here's the other part. The Bears have completely retooled their offensive coaching staff. I don't know if they had too many cooks in the kitchen last year, but they had the wrong cooks in the kitchen. New offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor, new quarterbacks coach, John DeFilippo, who, obviously the quarterbacks coach in theory isn't going to be working with Montgomery, but he's going to be giving some ideas to the room. And they bring in a new offensive line coach in Juan Castillo. They're apparently going to be going with more zone blocking this year. I think zone blocking fits the style of David Montgomery, who I think was patient to a fault last year. A zone running scheme that allows that kind of creativity is probably better for David Montgomery. So I think the indicators are looking up for him this year. I'm not holding that rookie season too much against David Montgomery.
I want to note, Joe, where he's going to fit he's gone in 2 auctions so far. I want to go over to the Dawson division very quickly. He is on a team at $20, which is a fair, I think it's a very nice number for Dave Montgomery, that has Joe Mixon for 42. So I look there and I go, if you think you have your 1-2, you've only spent $62 on that. That's the price, if not more, for some number 1 running backs. For instance, in that draft, Zeke went for 70. Barkley went for 59. This team also has Kenny Golladay. So there is I've got an RB1 I feel good about. Montgomery is probably in the mid to lower range of the RB2 category, you're hoping he has a better season. And Golladay, Joe, might find his way into the wide receiver 1 tier, depending on who you ask. But it's nothing overly spent so far. There's some nice foundation here, but there is still room to spend a lot more money with only $100 spent so far on 3 players who will be in Sam Lane's lineup from day 1.
Yeah, they're really interesting. You're looking at it from that perspective where you're saying, okay, I spent $62 on 2 running backs. Meanwhile, Ezekiel Elliott went for 70. By the way, we have to bring that up in the Dawson division. Ezekiel Elliott goes for $70, $11 more than Saquon Barkley, and $7 more than Christian McCaffrey. Only in auctions does that stuff happen, man. And I just wonder now, very, very clearly, Ian Hartitz from Pro Football Focus loves Zeke. Okay, like Foundation of the offense, going to be a great offense, double-digit touchdowns, all that stuff.
We'll get your guy.
But
I get it.
I would like to know, was he the final of the big three running backs to get drafted? And was there a price up because of that, or was this just a super aggressive bid? I'm not sure about that, but only in auctions are you going to see Ezekiel Elliott go there's a starter's difference. $11, you can get a start-worthy wide receiver for $11, and that's how much more Ezekiel Elliott was than Saquon Barkley.
Sometimes it's all about timing and where they go. Back to David Montgomery, Joe. I want to go back to Brad Evans here. You mentioned he liked him. He paid $25 for him. Aaron Jones went for $37. Aaron Jones probably at the lower end of the RB1 tier. Dak Prescott goes for $9. Yeah, right. A tough one. I get it. Touchdowns are scary to repeat or asked to. If you're going based on fantasy value of last year, touchdowns were a big part of Aaron Jones' game. Can he do it again? Probably not. Does it matter, though, if he can get more touches?
And by the way, just to go to the Dak Prescott thing, which you said $9, as appealing as Lamar Jackson for $20 is, maybe this is stupid, and please tell me if it is, because $20 from Lamar Jackson for somebody who doesn't pay up on quarterback, that still looks appealing to me. As appealing as that is, Dak Prescott's my number 3 quarterback, and he goes for $11 cheaper than that. $9 is not a whole lot to pay for somebody who could put up big time numbers with those receivers he's got this year.
Yeah, that's not a lot to pay. I'd like to ask Brad about that. Is that something where he saw the price and said, it's too good, I got to get him for $9? Because maybe, maybe Brad's got him in his top 3 or even top 5 for that matter. $9 for your quarterback is not bad at all. It's not like you're hamstringing yourself. I mean, yes, it could be maybe $6 more than you plan to pay for quarterback. That's typically where I land. Or Brad really liked Dak and said, I'm going to go get him. And $9 is worth it for me. That's the kind of stuff that you look at, where it can save you money. And now, Matt, maybe Brad was saying, and not everybody does, and I'm not saying you have to do this. I am putting aside $13 for my quarterback. Well, I've saved $4 now. Maybe that can go into another pool. Or I've put away $3. I'm going to dollar it. I'm going to dollar at my quarterback. Oh, but Dak at $9. That's worth it. I'll pay up for a quarterback there. But now maybe I'm not worried about another quarterback at all. I only need to get one more. I'll get a dollar guy. Maybe I subtract some money elsewhere. This is where you kind of have to adjust on the fly. I look at a couple of these teams here, Joe, as we're coming up on the end of this hour, and I see Mike Clay from ESPN. Last update is the same update we have now. 47 and 34 for Michael Thomas and Chris Godwin. He has stood back. He is one of only 2 teams that doesn't have a running back. He's also the only team that doesn't have a running back or a tight end. So if I'm Mike Clay, I would have to think, Joe, he still sees a lot on the board that he likes, that he's willing to sit back, let others spend their money on, because everybody else, except for 3 teams, has at least 2 running backs, at least 2. There are multiple teams still, 1, 2, 3, 4 teams still don't have a wide receiver. We have been auctioning for almost an hour. We are 56 nominations into this particular auction, and people are sitting back, Joe, at multiple positions right now, happy to just let the board fall as it may.
Yeah, really interesting. And by the way, to nobody's surprise, after Dave Richards spends $128 on Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, he has not made a bid since. So, he might have made a bid, but he hasn't won a player yet.
Well, we're just getting rolling here. We still got a couple more hours to play with as we are covering this Kings Classic auction. I believe they will be taking a break at some point, so hopefully we'll be able to get inside the mind of a couple of our participants, owners in this league. We got 3 hours of coverage, 1 hour, though, just about in the books. We got 2 more coming your way. Stay with us for more. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And we're back on the live stream here about an hour in, and 58 nominations in here, Joe. I want to review the last couple of names that have come off the board. Brad Evans, after we were just talking about him on the radio there, has gotten back into the mix here a little bit more. Gets his first wide receiver. It's Mike Evans at 30.
Pretty good.
And now Darren Waller at 13. So he is not paying top dollar for anyone. It feels like, and maybe this wasn't the initial plan, Joe, Brad's going to put together, maybe in his mind, a pretty well-balanced team. And right now, it seems like he's spreading the money out here for all of his positions.
Yeah, pretty good right now. I think he's going for a balanced team. Interesting to see him get in on the tight end business at $13 with Darren Waller. You're going to get some conflicting reports, Matt, about that Raider offense. They have a lot of weapons. They have potential to score a lot of points, but is Derek Carr going to be the quarterback to get it to all those weapons? So that's what's going to be curious for me. But $13 is a pretty good price for Darren Waller, and I love that $9 price for Dak Prescott. $30 for Mike Evans. I mean, there you go. Mike Evans, half the price of a Dalvin Cook. So there you go. I mean, there's somebody who's going for a really good player. I know there's questions about how much the Bucs are going to be throwing, but that's a really good player for $30.
As we look around here a little bit, a name we haven't spoken a lot about, Joe, is Josh Jacobs. Didn't really talk about him at all in the draft earlier today. And Howard Bender is going to get him with Joe Mixon. So he goes 49 for Mixon, 48 for Jacobs. So nearly half his budget on the running back position. Hayden Hurst for 9, Melvin Gordon for 26, Baker Mayfield for 2, and Daniel Jones for 2. So quarterbacks taken care of. I know, Joe, you like Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
Are you spending $26 on Melvin Gordon if you already have nearly $100 invested in Mixon and Jacobs?
Am I spending $26 on Melvin Gordon? Yes. On this team, no. I'm not.
Right. That's the context.
That's the
because you like the $26 price tag on Melvin Gordon.
No, I love that price tag. It's just I don't know if this is the right team for it. And maybe Howard is thinking, man, I wish I wouldn't have spent that 48 on Jacobs because I could have gotten 2 start-worthy wide receivers for that. So yeah, that's the game you have to play with yourself. Because again, Matt, as I said, you could start up to 6 wide. Now you can start up to 5 running backs, but good luck finding 5 running backs on one team you feel good about starting in fantasy. But you could also start up to 6 wide receivers, and I would be allocating more. I would be spreading around money more on wide receiver than I would be going heavy running back.
All right, everybody, it's hour 2 of our coverage of the Kings Classic auction here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan with you here. We'll take you till midnight Eastern, and if you didn't catch today's Kings Classic draft, well, you could do so anytime you want by hearing it on demand with the Sirius XM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. And you can watch the live stream of this event powered by Fantasy Alarm to see us, the auction results, and participants on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy. You should always be following there. We are in this 14-team PPR auction. We're almost 60 nominations into this one. Starting lineup is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and 3 flex spots, which could be a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. 4 points for passing touchdown, full point PPR. As I said, $200 salary cap here. Year 3 of this for us, year 3 of the Kings Classic. And Joe, we were just talking on the live stream. Want to get into this a little bit more now. Looking at a player's value without seeing teams, you have been high on Melvin Gordon. He goes for $26 in this auction to Howard Bender. $26. You like the price tag, but this is now where you got to look at the big picture because he already has Joe Mixon for 49. He's got Josh Jacobs for 48. To me, that position is handled. And I don't need to go spend up on another running back. I do want to go spread that money around. So in a vacuum, I'll take $26 from Melvin Gordon. I'm okay with it. But I don't think I need to invest that much money in the running back position. It's too volatile for me, especially Melvin Gordon's volatility in Denver. As much as you might like him, there's a lot of other stuff going on there.
By the way, I will also point out, Dolan, you said you would start a best ball draft with 3 running backs. Matt, I'm treating a best ball completely differently than I'm treating a redraft or an auction, because in best ball, you don't have the benefit of working the waiver wire. So yeah, that's a strategy for Howard where in general, I don't hate any of the prices. Maybe 48's a little juicy for Jacobs, but I don't hate the prices. I just don't know if I would have had all 3 of those guys on the same team.
Let's take a look at some other nominations here as of late and kind of review and things, see where things stand. Bob Harris, Joe, is going to get Darius Slayton for $15. I see that price tag and say, if this is an hour later, that might be a $7 player or an $8 player.
Yeah. So I'm actually looking at what, but you know what, Matt? I think in auctions, though, you're going to say that about a lot of players who like.
Absolutely, you are.
Right,
I get that.
right. So like, oh crap, Darius Slayton slipped through the cracks. Oh, and he went for $5. I would have liked that. He actually went for $10 in the Dawson division. That's the other division where he's been drafted. So you're probably right. But Darius Slayton's one of those guys who I don't know if I have a ton of, but like he's kind of an appealing wide receiver for, at least to me in best ball. When maybe his pop off weeks, you can benefit more from them. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair price, but you're 100% right. If we're talking about this in the 3:00 hour, he's one of those guys who might slip through the cracks and becomes like a $5, $6, $7 player.
Now I'll say this. If you like Darius Slayton and you like him enough, go get him. Am I saying to spend $25 on the guy? No, probably not. But if we are just getting into the second hour of this auction and a guy like that goes up, who I don't want to say is sleeper potential, but maybe has another step forward, could make a bigger leap than what he did last year, which was a hell of a find for the New York Giants. They deserve all the credit for all the crap I gave that team last year. They did a good job getting Darius Slayton. All the credit in the world. He's not a secret anymore. But if you really believe in him, maybe you marked him for 11 or 12, you go to 15. Now, if enough people, though, this is where this is sometimes, Joe, where you have to practice the patience. If you like Darius Slayton that much, and he's one of these guys who he's going to make the leap, that's a guy I sit on. I don't nominate him. I hope no one else nominates him. I don't want more people than need to. Because if enough people have bled out money, they go, I can't go to 15 for Slayton. I have other spots to fill. But if you do this early, now you're putting more teams in play to get into a bidding war, which you probably don't want to get into for Darius Slayton, to be fair. If you think about his ceiling, do you really want to get in a bidding war for Darius Slayton? So that patience can be tough sometimes. Yeah, and I understand because we're all excited to do this.
I will pay up for him, but I would rather I don't, and maybe I can slip him through the cracks, But then, of course, Matt, you also run the risk of you try to slip a player through the cracks, and then he's the player everybody else wants to slip through the cracks, and then all of a sudden you got a guy going for $21 when he should go for 11. So I want to call to attention a hilarious term from Bob Long in the draft room. He says, I need to start using this. The first quote unquote cricket pick of the draft. When you nominate a guy for $1 and the rest of the room is crickets, nobody bids. Dom Centurino puts up Eric Ebron for $1 and gets him for $1. Matt, I think it is actually a very appealing year to go dumpster diving at the tight end position because there are a lot of these Ebron guys like Ebron, Chris Herndon, Dawson Knox.
Jack Doyle's in there for me for $1.
Yeah, Jack Doyle, if you like him. Irv Smith. Maybe for a guy who's going to go for $3 or $4, TJ Hawkinson. No, like there are so many guys where I think in a league where you have a bunch of bench spots, you could even draft 3 of these like $1 tight ends, ordering off the dollar menu, Matt. And you're gonna satisfy.
Are you going
yourself.
in with that thought process? Are you going in like, I can go get Kittle, I can go get Kelsey, but if I don't, I'll go for dollar guys, or are you still keeping tabs maybe on other guys?
I'm going to keep tabs because I know he's polarizing, but I like Hayden Hurst. I like the $9 price tag Howard Bender got Hayden Hurst for. And like Ertz is one of those guys, Zach Ertz, I have been drafting him when I've actually gotten Zach Ertz in the 6th round this year, Matt. And he's not a guy I'm actively targeting, but if he's going to fall to the 6th round, late 5th, I'll be in at that price. I am monitoring guys like Ertz and Andrews, and I will target Kittle and Kelsey. But other than that, I'm dumpster diving. I think the middle rounds is a dead zone of tight ends this year. I have no idea what to do with Evan Ingram. I have no idea what to do with Darren Waller. I have no idea what to do with Hunter Henry. Tyler Higbee is another guy who, if he slips into that dumpster dive range, I'll take a shot because I'm a Higbee believer, but there is that little bit of hey, did it for only 5 games. Is this for real? That's something where I am mostly going to in most drafts, Matt. I'm going to dumpster dive at the position and get 3 guys like Hawkinson, Blake Jarwin, and Chris Herndon, and I'm going to mix and match from that.
You're concerned about Waller, Joe. Is it Adding Henry Ruggs? Is it the price tag? Ruggs.
I think the price. By the way, Brad Evans got him for $13. It's not a bad price. He actually, let's see here. I think I saw him go in another division. $13. Did he go in the Blanda? No, he's only been drafted once thus far. I think $13 is a fine price. But he's
is
just
that
a
one
guy
where you don't want to pay that number this early?
I'm worried about the offense in general. Derek Carr, how successful is Derek Carr going to be having to distribute the ball to all those players? Matt, I want to call a price discrepancy to mind.
Yeah,
Zach Ertz, $20 to Jeff Manns in the Brown division. Zach Ertz goes for $20 to Steve Raven from Fighting Chance Fantasy.
Whoa,
and $11 in the Dawson. See what I'm saying about Ertz? Not a guy I'm targeting. I probably wouldn't do $20 for him because I mean, just listening to Greg Cosell this offseason, he loves Dallas Goedert. Like, just thinks Goddard's a big time tight end talent.
I think the Eagles.
Yeah, a big time tight end talent. But $11, Matt, I'm in on Zach Ertz at that price.
Well, it also maybe makes you think, okay, maybe Ertz is a $15 tight end. I get him for 11, and I want to put that into context. The Dynasty Vipers here, Matt Donnelly. Baker for 2, Deshaun Watson for 10. All right, so he's covered at quarterback for $12. Nice price for Deshaun Watson. Aaron Jones for 44, a little higher than we've seen him go. David Johnson for 25, Ertz for 11. So there's the context of that team. He's got a polarizing high-end RB2, low-end RB1. David Johnson, you classify him where you want to, because I feel like that's all over the board right now. I've heard people say he'll be back to RB1. I've heard people say, like yourself, and probably me too, I don't want.
Hey, Matt, how many really good fantasy seasons has David Johnson had?
2, 3,
1.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had some runs, but like when I say,
runs,
like,
I guess is what I'm thinking of, because he's David Johnson.
But like the end of that 2015 season. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like this.
No, I get it. No.
I look back at this,
this is where the price matters.
We look at David Johnson as like, who is this hammer guy, and he was for like 6 games in 2015, and then all of 2016, and then like I think he had a solid fantasy season in 2017, but he didn't play well. Like the times David Johnson has had a full fantasy campaign where he played well and put up good fantasy numbers once, 2016, an entire presidential term ago.
Am I allowed to say this about David Johnson? If Bill O'Brien wanted him and the trade he made for him, shouldn't that give us more pause after him trading for Duke Johnson last year? Like, maybe this guy doesn't make the best decisions when it comes to player personnel.
The thing about Bill O'Brien is like, and people have pointed this out, and I think it's worth saying that I actually think overall he's a pretty good coach. Like, as an
O's, you think that way? Yes.
In-game coach, say what you want. He probably makes a mind up. I think people have been really disappointed with O'Brien because he was so aggressive at Penn State and going for it, and he's been a really like conservative punter. But
he loves kicking.
He has won games in the NFL, so you can. He picked Deshaun Watson, works well with him. But I mean, yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, but when I look at David Johnson and the fact that he's essentially had one good full fantasy campaign and it was 4 years ago, that's what gives me pause about him.
So that's what that team looks like there. I mentioned David Johnson at $25. Aaron Jones, Joe, we talked about him a little bit there. $44 in the Dawson division. Is he off the board? In the 33 in the Blanda and 37 in
that's a pretty
Brown.
Good range.
So quite a range. Give me a number you feel good about in a vacuum for Aaron Jones.
35.
And I want to know where he fits, right? I'm not trying to go get him.
35 to 40, I think, is probably where I would be okay with him because, he's going to be going cheaper than those big guys, but for good reason. The thing I wonder about Aaron Jones is, are we being unfair to him because the Packers drafted A.J. Dillon? I mean, can you make the argument? Actually, I think you could very easily make the argument that he's the second best receiver on that team. And that's a failing of the general manager, But that's all I'm saying, Matt. Are we being unfair? Is he going to get a ton of checkdowns? I think he might.
We were mad about the presence of Jamal Williams. And Aaron Jones finally had that big season we wanted last year. Is it a mixture of the touchdown heaviness and A.J. Dillon? Is it the fact that Aaron Jones probably hasn't lived up to our personal fantasy expectations enough, and that's a knock on a former coaching staff? You got to go back a couple of years, obviously, with McCarthy. Is it a mix of a lot of things? Or is there just pause about a lot of things that haven't gone our way for Aaron Jones? Being completely fantasy selfish here. Is that why the pause remains there for Aaron Jones after a pretty darn good season last year? His best fantasy season by far.
I think it's people wondering if the Packers know what they're doing. And I think that's fair.
It is fair. They were like quietly a good record last year, but I don't think anybody was scared by them like years past. The Packers used to get that benefit of the doubt. Well, it's Aaron Rodgers. I want a piece of the Packers. Not the case anymore. Aaron Rodgers went as a QB2 in our draft earlier today, which is not wrong, and I'm not against it, but that's where that offense is now, and that's a different story. We're going to be talking to some of the guests coming up a little bit later. We're going to have a break, so we'll get to talk to some of them as their teams stand right now, what things look like. Joe, quickly here in the tight end position in our Brown draft auction. Darren Waller for 13, Kittle for 34, Ebron for $1, Kelsey for 32, Hayden Hurst for 9, Zach Ertz for 20. So the ranges are starting to at least come into play here.
Mark Andrews just went for 20 as well.
There you go. That was my next question.
How about this? Mark Andrews goes for 20. Same price as Ertz. That's fine.
Sure.
The same team, Curtis Patrick, who has George Kittle. So there is a 2 tight end build there with George Kittle and Mark Andrews. And that calls to mind a 2 tight end build, Matt, that I saw in the Blanda division where Dennis Clausen of Roto Ballers drafted both Kelsey and Kittle. Do you like that?
Why not
in this league?
Yeah, because I have the option. Look, wipe away the positions for 2 reasons. 1, you have the flex. 2, we're talking about guys that fit into the wide receiver 1 tier, and you're getting them for cheaper prices than other wide receiver 1s.
Yeah. So let's
wipe that away. You got to almost cover it up. It's like this mental block, and I'll admit I've had it too at times. It's a mental block there with some of these guys.
Drafting those tight ends, right? So here, I want to do a little bit of a comparison here, okay? So last year, Kelsey and Kittle in PPR averaged 15.9 fantasy points per game. Both of them did. That tied them with the number 8 wide receiver, who was Allen Robinson. Okay. So they were essentially top 10 wide receivers. Kelsey and Kittle go for $26 and $27 to Dennis Clausen. Here are some prices for wide receivers. Chris Godwin for 40, Adam Thielen for 30, Calvin Ridley for 32, Amari Cooper for 30, Allen Robinson, who I just told you tied those two in PPR production, for 35, Kenny Golladay for 32, Mike Evans for 30, DJ Moore for 32, Juju Smith-Schuster for 31. So you're already seeing there is a significant discount for guys who produced at the level of top 10 wide receivers at the tight end position here. Is part of that discount because you only have one starting tight end spot? Yes, but those are the flex spots are essentially wide receiver spots. Those are bargains compared to where the top wide receivers are going, Matt. Absolute bargains. I think Dennis Clausen should be very happy about that. Now, Kittle and Kelsey were a little bit more expensive in the Brown division, but Kittle, $34. Still going for less than Davante Adams, going for less than Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, same range as Juju Smith-Schuster, less than Julio Jones, exact same as DJ Moore. There was value to be had here at the tight end position.
We still have plenty more coverage to come of the Kings Classic Fantasy Football Auction here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Follow along at Sirius XM Fantasy. Check out all the auctions. Check out the draft boards from earlier today in the Kings Classic Draft. We'll be back with more after this. And picking it back up here on the live stream. I think we'll have a break coming up in the auction in about 15 minutes, a little less than that. So we'll get to talk to some of the participants there. Interesting, Joe. Look at the quarterback position in our Brown division. And as of right now, I count 1, 2, 3, 4 teams don't have a quarterback. 2 teams have 2 quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield goes for $2 to Howard Bender, who also has Daniel Jones, so he's going cheap there, $4 on his quarterback position. Bob Lung spends 5 on Breeze and 4 on Stafford. Same kind of idea. Keep it under $10. I like to keep it under like $7 or $8 if I can at the quarterback position. But Mike Clay's going to sit back. Corey Parsons is going to sit back. Dom Cintorino sitting back. Dave Richards sitting back at the quarterback position. Some numbers here: Prescott for 9, Deshaun for 10, Josh Allen for 6, Mahomes for 19, Kyler Murray for 10, Russell Wilson for 9, Carson Wentz for 4, Lamar Jackson for 20, Breeze for 5. Even if you've been sitting back or are sitting back, Joe, you're still getting, if you've gotten any of these guys, I'm not seeing anything where like, oh man, they really overpaid for the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not like, you look at a guy like Kyler Murray. Yeah, he's $10, and Carson Wentz for 4, I think is a special buy. But Kyler Murray probably has more like real true league winning potential because of the way he runs. That's a price I'm willing to get in on. But even like you still have guys like Matt Ryan out there, like he's going to go for a couple of bucks. Yeah.
Well, it could all work out here. It's a deep enough position, and I bring that up because if you spend $10 for Kyler Murray, all right, maybe you only had 8 budgeted for your quarterback position. All right, so you go a little cheaper on those back end guys. You're happy to get your hopefully weeks 1 through 16 starting quarterback in Kyler Murray. You've spent up for him. You have high hopes for him. The ceiling's high. You hope he can be better than he was last year. You hope he can absolutely be a top 3 fantasy quarterback. So if I'm spending $10 on a guy, I'm not going to have to worry about, all right, so I don't get that other sleeper I wanted for $2 or $3 later on. I only get a couple of dollar guys. That's the kind of context I try to put that into myself, as opposed to, oh man, I spent $3 extra. I didn't want to spend that much on a quarterback. It's not that big of a deal if you're getting a high-end player like a Kyler Murray.
No, I have no problem with these quarterback prices. I just want to point out to the listeners, I don't think Kyler Murray is going for $10 in your hotel league.
That's the key.
Mahomes is sure as hell not going for $19. Lamar's not going for 20. So these prices are depressed a little bit, Matt. But the one thing that is true is the last quarterbacks to be drafted, whether it's like Wentz for $4, that will happen. There will be guys who you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe that guy went for $5. And that's what's going to happen at the quarterback position.
Let's get back to it here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Our coverage of the Kings Classic auction rolls right along. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan with you here. We'll take it till midnight Eastern, and we'll be getting into some of the guests, participants, as we get into the break coming up in just a little bit. We were having a whole discussion during the live stream powered by Fantasy Alarm about the quarterback position, being able to wait on it. Sometimes the value is just too good if you think you have a really high ceiling player. We were just talking about Jeff Manns getting Kyler Murray for $10. It just works out sometimes. Maybe you adjust elsewhere. I do want to note, though, let's take a look at this team here, Joe. Jeff Manns, Murray for 10, Chubb for 52, Akers for 20, Keenan Allen for 20, DK Metcalf for 21, Ertz for 20, DeAndre Swift for 24. I look at that, Joe, as Jeff Manns probably saving some money on Keenan Allen at $20, maybe saving a little bit on Metcalf or getting him right where you want to be and saying, I believe in DeAndre Swift. I will pay $24 to go get him as a third running back on my team.
Yep.
Or maybe second. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, DeAndre Swift, like I think you're paying for the upside there, but you look at the rest of the team and I don't see any egregious overspends here where, you're getting, Chubb I thought was a little expensive. But right. I also kind of like Jeff double dipping on the rookie running backs and shooting for upside, because I know there's a lot of people out there, Matt, saying, oh, this is not the year, you're running back rookies. You don't want them. I was like, I actually think running back's the easiest position to learn and produce early, Matt. And there's some legit upside with these rookie running backs with a lot of appealing landing spots. So I'm I'd be happy loading up, double dipping on those upside-oriented rookie running backs. For instance, Mark Ingram for $16 is a good buy, but Cam Akers at $20 has more league-winning potential. So I think that's a reasonable strategy to go about it this year.
The idea of the rookies being behind, I get it, but I also think progressive thinking teams, progressive head coaches, forward thinking, they're going to put the best players on the field. That's why Clyde Edwards-Helaire went for $43, went in the first round of the draft we did earlier today. People should be believing in him. There's every reason to believe in him. Now, are there coaches who are stubborn and too old school thinking, and a rookie misses a block and he's on the bench for the rest of the Yes. Unfortunately, Joe, those coaches and those mindsets do still exist. It might drive us nuts, but it's something you and I have learned sometimes the hard way. We can be stubborn on the other end of that, going, no, he's going to play. He's their best player. He's got to play. He's got to get playing time. And guys don't get out there. Whether they should or not, it just happens that way sometimes. Young players, we've argued about guys like Philip Lindsay for over the years. Why is he not playing more? Why is he not touching the ball 20 times per game? That's obviously a moot point now with Melvin Gordon there, but there are guys like that. Aaron Jones, we've had that argument about against coaches. We're on game day on a Sunday going, how is he not touching the ball more? Sometimes it's a harsh, unfortunate reality that we have to face. And unfortunately, Joe, that's probably going to happen with some rookies, some talented rookies this year, that coaches just say, oh, they're too far behind, or they screwed this one thing up. I can't have that on my team. That can't happen. And the better coaches, the better teams, they're going to play their best players regardless of what their tenure is in the NFL.
What's the example I always like to use about this? On his first career carry. His first career carry against the defending Super Bowl champions, Kareem Hunt lost a fumble. I had people screaming and yelling at me on Twitter. You told us to draft this guy. He's a bum. He's going to be benched for the rest of his life. He's never going to. Oh, my goodness. And then Andy Reid. What did Andy Reid do, Matt? He stuck with Kareem Hunt. What did Kareem Hunt end up doing in that game against the New England Patriots? He had 246 yards from scrimmage and 3 touchdowns in that game. What did he end up doing that year? He led the NFL in rushing, and he didn't fumble again. Good coaches understand.
And he bounced back. I can't believe it.
Oh, my God. It's like good coaches put good players on the field, and they let them play through mistakes. So that is the example I will always go to, because you'll always get people saying, oh, he deserves to be benched for fumbling. Oh, yeah. I mean, Kareem Hunt, he's been a running back his entire life. Like, the one thing that you never learn as a running back, that fumbling is bad and you shouldn't do it. So you have to make a point. Now, I mean, smart coaches get good players on the field. I am not fading the rookies this year. I'm not doing it. Receiver, maybe a little bit more so than the running backs, but I'm just not doing it at running back. Maybe that's foolish, but I'm hoping that there are good coaches out there who understand that these guys give them a better chance to win games.
Guess what? Some of these players might be forced to go out there. Guys that we don't have, ranked high. That might happen anyway. And coaches would be stubborn not to get those guys out there. That might be it. You might just find a hot run. And it might be a season of those. And sometimes it is anyway. And you get the right guy at the right time and you just stick with that guy. Or maybe not. But you shouldn't be turning a blind eye to any one of the rookies. It's going to happen. The stuff we just talked about is going to happen. You're going to have coaches that are stubborn, and I'm like, I can't rely on him yet. But there's going to be other ones that get their chances and excel. And if you had this just generalization of the rookies this year and say, I'm not spending on them, I'm not picking them high, it's going to cost you. I will guarantee you that. Interesting price tag here, Joe. Let's go over to Andy Behrens from Yahoo. Has Zeke for 63, has Mark Ingram for 16. He has gone very cheap at wide receiver. Boyd for 14. Jerry Jeudy at 7. Will Fuller at 15. DJ Chark at 29. Lamar Jackson on this team at 20. He has just added Kareem Hunt for $20. Full point PPR. So
Will help.
he has spent $36. I'll put this into context here on Mark Ingram and Kareem Hunt. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, that's
A
not bad.
backfield of, what is it, a touch under 100? Yeah, right? A backfield of $99 has resulted in Ezekiel Elliott, Mark
with the
Ingram,
Zeke
and Kareem Hunt. I'm okay with that.
I am too.
Now, how do you feel about the receivers on that team? With Boyd, Jerry Jeudy, Will Fuller, and DJ Chark.
I think Andy's strategy probably will be to get another one he feels good about.
Or
But
is Mark Andrews off this auction yet? I'm sorry. He's not, right?
no, Mark Andrews went for $20 because
I'm just looking for another big tight end he might be able to grab.
Yeah,
to fill one of those spots.
Curtis Patrick
Yep.
has two tight ends, two big time tight ends on his team. I wonder what Andy will say about this, because does he feel he was hurt even though Lamar Jackson went for a good price? Does Andy feel like he was hurt because he has a big time running back and a big time quarterback on this team? And he went and he got DJ Chark for $29, which is, by the way, is not a bad price at all.
That's fine.
But he probably was in the range where he's like, I gotta get this guy. And I wonder if that was an end of tier kind of purchase at the wide receiver position that he would have liked to have invested a little bit earlier in that tier and get somebody like DK Metcalf for $21. I'm looking at other Amari Cooper for $25, even though I don't love Cooper this year.
25 is all right, though. Let's bring this back on the other end here, because I think they're going to be taking a break in the auction, which will give us an open window to talk to some of the participants. So we'll take a break here from Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Come back on the other side as we continue our coverage of the Kings Classic auction. Pick it back up here on the live stream, as I think they're getting ready for the 90-minute break here. So it should give us a chance to talk to some of the participants. Joe, you were just talking about Amari Cooper, and I feel like I missed that before. Wanted to get into some names in that range. Allen Robinson for $34. Kenny Galladay for $31. A.J. Green for $22. Juju for $32. And also, Joe, speaking of Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup goes for $15. A $10 difference between Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. I think Lamb is still on the board.
I like Gallup at that price way more than I like Cooper at that price. Even though 25 is not bad for Cooper.
25 is fine for Amari Cooper, though. That's the thing. You can like both prices. That's a possibility. I think that's okay.
Yeah, but
Tyler Lockett
Gallup
at $22.
for 15, I really like.
I like that a lot. 15 there. That's an interesting group. Juju for 32. AJ for 22. AJ Green, sorry. Michael Gallup for 15. Julian Edelman for 19. Emmanuel Sanders for 10. Is there a $9 difference between Julian Edelman and Emmanuel Sanders? Maybe not. Maybe there is.
That one. I think what is Emmanuel Sanders? How much of a role is he going to have? Is the question. Yeah, that's that. But I mean, for $10. Yeah, I'll take that shot. So Bob Long really going, I don't want to say dumpster diving at the wide receiver position, but he's going for depth here. Juju, AJ Green, Michael Gallup, Emmanuel, Julian Edelman. How do you feel about Ronald Jones for $17?
You know, I was looking at that, and he's one of those that I'm probably not going after. That I kind of just let somebody else take him.
But 17 is kind of fine. Like, I would rather have, I can't believe this, but I would rather have Ronald Jones at $17 than Leonard Fournette at $30.
I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready to go there. I watched enough Ronald Jones. I don't think I'm ready to go.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Because I feel like I can hate Ronald Jones in 3 weeks and go.
I'm probably just going to be out on Ronald Jones, and if he makes me look stupid, I'm just like Devontae Parker last year. I will gladly take the L. Devontae Parker fooled me too many times for me to be in on him last year. If Ronald Jones fools me this year, all right, I'll take the L on that.
And we're back here, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. This is the Kings Classic auction coverage. It's year 3 of the Kings Classic auction, year 3 of our coverage, which is great to be back with you here. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan, not in Canton, We're virtual like everybody else is, but still making this happen to help you prepare for your own auctions, prepare for your own drafts. And if you want to prepare, not only can you be tracking this one, you can go back and hear pick-by-pick coverage and analysis of all the fantasy football drafts and auctions we have produced in 2020 whenever you want with the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. And that includes today's Kings Classic Snake Drafts. Those concluded earlier today. Broke all that down for you. Also can check that out on demand with the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. I believe we are in break right now from our Brown Division auction. They're going to take a 10-minute break. That's going to give us the opportunity here in this segment to get to a couple of the participants as they take a break. Probably hit the bathroom first, and then we'll get to get in their heads a little bit. We don't typically get to do that because everybody's got to be on top of the game and seeing the nominations. Joe, it's the one thing about auctions. If there's a downside is the breaks, unless you literally take one like this, you can't have any breaks. You better take your phone or your tablet or your laptop, whatever you have, you got to take it with you. If you got to go to the bathroom, you got to get a snack, you got to feed your kid, it's coming with you.
I love the move where you have to, while you're standing over the John, you're holding up your laptop. Or you have somebody scream, hey, it's Diggs. Do you want me to bid? That's always a good one.
15. Let him go. 25.
Yeah, it's fun. You got to build in a break every once in a while.
You can't take an Austin Powers pee during an auction. That's just, you can't do it. It's just going to take too long. All right, so let's do this now. Let's talk to Brad Evans right now. He's going to be joining us. We're going to talk about his team, see how things stand so far, see what he likes about this team. Fade the noise, of course, here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio as well. Brad, we get into this here. I want to ask you about the quarterback position first. I'll run down what you've spent so far. 9 on Dak, 25 on Montgomery, 37 on Jones, Mike Evans for 30, Deontay Johnson for 15, and Darren Waller for 13. Dak Prescott for $9. Is that a target for you, and or is that price just too good to ignore?
Oh, man, it was irresistible. A hot dog on a stick was calling my name right there. After seeing Kyler Murray go for 10, and then using Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes as measurements, Lamar going for $20, Patty Mahomes going for 19. I had a feeling, still with several good quarterbacks on the board, that Dak was going to be underpriced. And, I think somebody threw him out there for like $3, immediately bid up to 9, once, twice, sold. So I'm ecstatic to get a guy that, industry consensus have as QB3. I have Kyler Murray as my QB3. But with Murray already off the board, I was itching to get a quarterback, and it's going to really pocket some dollar savings as well. And that one certainly fit the bill. So thrilled to get Dak Prescott at $9.
Brad, let's talk about what obviously happened. You were trying to encourage a bidding war, and you got saddled with David Montgomery for $25. I know that's not a player you wanted. Tell me about how devastated you were at that price.
Oh man, I'm just sullen. I'm crestfallen. I'm just gonna drown my sorrows in tequila tonight, gentlemen. Look, obviously, jokes aside, I'm thrilled with that price on my boy mandatory Montgomery. Am I doubling down? I'm going back to that poison well. Hell yes, I am. I hate Matt Nagy with a fiery passion, and understandably so. Hey, let's give 3 throw the ball on 1st and 10 and run him right up the middle. That's a great idea. Hey, let's bring in Cordero Patterson and get all gimmicky here inside the 5-yard line instead of giving it to our workhorse running back. But I think with the coaching changes, I think with the offensive line hopefully upgrades and potentially upgrade a quarterback, although we're hearing rumors right now it could be Trubisky starting under center, not Nick Foles in week 1. I think Montgomery's, going to tote a heavy volume. And that B word is so delightful to hear in fantasy land. And he was somebody I wanted in this draft because I knew that people are going to be down on him from last year, and I got him for $1 cheaper than I did a season ago. Hopefully, it will be a rosier outcome compared to 2019.
I want to talk to you about Darren Waller here. Goes for $13. Saw Kittle go for 34. Mark Andrews to the same team. Curtis Patrick for 20. Hunter Henry for 8. Kelsey for 32. Hayden Hurst for 9. Ertz for 20. Evan Ingram for 9. Well, Joe and I were discussing Waller. Last year was such a great breakout year for him, adding to the depth of the high end of the tight end tier, which we've been asking for feels like forever. Do you like the price there? Is that another guy you're targeting? Any concerns with what Oakland has done this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, you got Henry Ruggs there, obviously, who's going to come in and either way some of the target share. Hunter Renfro's still around, Tyrell Williams as well. But no, Waller was somebody I was very focused on acquiring in this draft. I think he is grossly underpriced. Whether you're looking at, snake drafts, traditionally getting him in like round 7, round 8, even full point PPR exercise, or in an auction format. It's really not that much of a step down, I believe, from Zach Ertz to Waller. I mean, Waller last season, a guy that, was just catching balls left and right, 117 targets, 90 receptions, over 1,100 yards, and he only had 3 touchdowns. And I would suspect some positive TD regression there. Assuming that red zone target share can increase, it was only 14.8% last year. I believe it will. I think he's going to land somewhere in the 5 to 7 range. Now, is he going to be able to duplicate 90 catches again? Probably not. But I think it's 475, and I think he's going to cross over the 1,000-yard mark yet again and again. You're getting him for dirt cheap, $13. Deal of a deal in my estimation.
Brad, I'm not sure you're aware, but you are just $6 away from having the hammer in this draft. Bob Harris has 77. You have 71. I have to imagine there are some players out there you are aggressively targeting. Can you give us any hints, or is that something we're just going to have to wait to see?
There is one in particular. Hopefully the room isn't listening right now. That is a certain wide receiver in the AFC that is still on the board, at a breakout season last year, who I think to come, close to replicating what he did a year ago. So yeah, I'm a bit of a bully right now in the room, along with Bob. But I'm going to try to get some money off the table here. But this is where I always like to be in drafts. I'm a value seeker. I don't overspend on the mega stars. I'm not going to slap a wallet, for the Christian McCaffreys of the world. I'd rather just kind of sit back, wait, and let the values fall to me. And I'm in a position right now to really take control of this room and really add depth to my bench. As long as I can get this certain wide receiver, I'm going to be in pretty good shape.
Brad Evans, Fade the Noise. Thanks for being with us, man. Good luck.
Gracias, amigos.
See ya. All right, let's get another one in here before they kick it back off again. Let's bring in Howard Bender, running down his team real quick. He's going to spend the quarterback position, a grand total of $4 between Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield. Spends at running back, Mixon for 49, Josh Jacobs for 48. Wide receiver, you got Allen Robinson for 34, Marvin Jones for 9, Will added Melvin Gordon for 26, and Hayden Hurst for $9. Howard, we'll start at the running back position. Was this a spot that you wanted to spend on? Did either one of these guys just kind of fall in your lap? Take us through your thought process as it relates to spending almost $100 between Mixon and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, the 2 running backs who I wanted, I had a list of a few. I wasn't going to spend up in the 60s for guys like McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley. I just thought that it was too high. I even got a chance to stay out of the $50 range, which is really what I wanted to do. So Mixon and Jacobs are 2 guys on my list to target at that spot. I would have preferred a little bit cheaper, but obviously, I expect to spend up. And then I went and I grabbed Melvin Gordon. It was kind of like an impulse buy at the register. I was sitting there waiting for the girl in front of me to bag her groceries, and I see him sitting there next to the Twix bar and the Altoid. So I was like, listen, I know I want a third running back, a guy who I can just rotate in there during the bye weeks. As far as the other flex spots and really the wide receiver, the tail end of the wide receiver, I can fill with value picks at the end, towards the end of the draft, because I know the tight end pool pretty well. Some late guys to target. I also feel good about the back end of the pool at wide receiver. I think there's still a lot of value there. So, if we can get some of these guys to eat some of this money on some of the bigger names that are out there, then I feel like I'm in a good spot here.
Yeah, Howard, you are close to the back end of this draft in terms of money available with $21. Andy Behrens, Bob Lung, Curtis Patrick have fewer than that. I did want to ask you about Mixon and Jacobs, because interestingly enough, I think they're pretty similar. I think they're uber talented guys, neither of whom was a full-time running back in college, both of whom I think are super talented receivers, and neither of whom have been utilized to that degree in the NFL thus far. I think for these two guys to reach their ceiling at the price you paid, they probably need to be more involved in the passing game. How optimistic are you that that's going to happen?
I'm pretty optimistic about Joe Mixon being more heavily involved in the passing game. I really do. I love the offense that they're putting together there. Zach Taylor seems to have some good stuff going on. A couple of improvements on the offensive line now that it's healthy. I have better hopes for that. But you know what? I also kind of see Cincinnati falling behind in games and needing to pass, and I think that Joe Mixon will be on the field for that. It's not a Gio Bernard world anymore. So I kind of like seeing Joe Mixon in that full-time role, and I think that's really what Taylor wants out of him. Josh Jacobs said he wanted to catch 60 passes. I would love that, Josh. If you could do it, big hugs
John.
from me. Right,
No,
but
I just took him in an NFFC yesterday, Howard. I'm hoping.
Right. So, fingers crossed there. But you know what? I'll take 35, 40 catches out of him this season. I don't think it's going to be on the low end there. He's going to be on the field a ton. I think Gruden really likes having him as that running back. I just don't see them really wanting to turn to Jalen Richard, or do they want that much trickery with a guy like Lynn Bowden, who hasn't seen any real camp time here. So, I'm confident in both these guys to carry me the rest of the way.
Howard, I know that we're getting ready to kick things back off. We don't want to miss any nominations. So thank you for being with us. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thanks so much, guys. Great broadcast, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thanks for helping us out. The video stream is powered by Fantasy Alarm. We will come back as the auction will resume, as will we, right after this on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. So, Joey, pick it up here on the live stream, the video stream powered by Fantasy Alarm, and we'll get into, I guess you call it, the second half of the auction. A little break there for us to talk to some of the participants. Thanks to Brad Evans and Howard Bender for joining us here. So, as now we can kind of take a step back and take stock of things. Dave Richard, Dom Cintorino, Corey Parsons, all of them, no quarterbacks right now. And they sit here with, as I look here, let's see. Dave's got $24. Dom's got $25. Corey Parsons got $37. There's spots to fill here. I mean, Dave Richards got 4 guys right now on this team. He spent $128 on McCaffrey and Barkley, $26 on Kupp, $22 on Lockett. I feel like Dave Richards, Joe, at this point, is got to go $2 on his quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, that you absolutely must, Matt. If you're going to go stars and scrubs, and you haven't don't have a quarterback, well, you certainly need to buy up to pay down at that position. And obviously, I think Dave is going to be also dumpster diving at the tight end spot, which is appealing this year as we got into.
Well, I mean, you got Waller off the board, Kittle, Andrews, Ebron, Kelsey, Hurst, Ertz, Ingram. There's still options out there at the tight end position. You can do it. Yeah. I mean, it's not like Matt, all of these guys are off the board. I'm with you.
I am telling you, it is a guarantee. Now, it is a guarantee that you can get 3 tight ends for $5 total. Like, it just depends on which of the ones you want. Maybe Hawkinson's one of the guys you want for that price and he goes up, but you can get a Dallas Goedert, somebody like Blake Jarwin, Jay Sternberger, your guy Jack Doyle. I guarantee you can go dumpster diving at the tight end and get 3 for $5 or fewer dollars. I guarantee you that can happen. It just every draft you can do that if need be.
All right, we're going to get into the second half of the Kings Classic auction here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan back with you here. Year 3 of the Kings Classic, year 3 of our coverage. We thank you for being with us as we'll get back into all of it. Follow along the live stream. You can see us, the results, the participants at Sirius XM Fantasy. And here, pick-by-pick coverage, not only of the Kings Classic draft we did earlier today, but all of the drafts and auctions we have produced in 2020 whenever you want to, I should say, wherever you are with the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Draft. Just a review here: $200 cap, 16 roster spots, 10 starters, 6 bench, 3 injured list spots, quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and 3 flex spots. Very, very important. A running back, wide receiver, or tight end can fill those flex spots. 4 points for the passing touchdowns, 1 point per PPR. It's a 14-teamer. And at this point, Joe, let's see. Who's got the hammer? Is it Bob Harris at $67? He does. The hammer,
Bob
Joe, as always.
Hammer.
Who's got the most money left to spend? 67 for Bob Harris. Who else is close here? Mike Clay's got 43. And then it's kind of cheap after that. Evans with 38. Colby Conway with 38. And everybody else is under $30. Pat Doherty's also got 40.
I'm guessing
so the hammer here, Joe, also interesting, is on a team that already has spent $19 on Patrick Mahomes, but has not spent at all pretty much at the running back position.
At the running back, where Bob's going to have to go. Now he's going to be able to use that money to get the appealing running backs left. But Matt, Brad Evans was on with us. He got the player he clearly was targeting in Devontae Parker that he used that hammer on. So he adds Devontae Parker.
$22. Where are you at with $22 for Devontae Parker?
Fine. It's fine. He went the same price as
right.
I can't believe I'm saying this. And
do it.
I'd much rather have Devontae Parker than T.Y. Hilton. Much rather. Hilton's already hurt. They're going to be low volume passing. I mean, $22. I'd much rather have him. I gotta say it. I can't believe that. As T.Y. Hilton's been one of my favorite players in the league, and Devontae Parker has decidedly not been. But I mean, you got to evaluate it on the surface. And, Brad got that player he wanted. And right now he's looking like he's got a pretty balanced kind of roster. The question is, does he have enough star power on this team to carry him? And he admitted, that's not where he goes. He doesn't spend up for those guys.
Okay, here's what I want to say about T.Y. Hilton, because I've been a big backer of him for most of his career. Missed 6 games last year, played 14 games the year before. Was on a great streak before that. Had missed like 2 games in his first 6 years, 7 years, 6 years. And I saw a beat writer say, well, he's only missed this much time. There is a difference between missing time and not playing at the level that I can rely on you for when I set my lineup on a Sunday morning and go, okay, he's playing, but how much is he playing? How bad is that ankle? How bad is that knee? Whatever it may. How bad is that hamstring? Is he not practicing all week and he's going to try it out in the December game? How much confidence do I want to have? And this is a different conversation between fantasy and reality, but it may not be. If you're the Colts and you put a guy like T.Y. Hilton out there and he hasn't practiced all week and he's had a hamstring injury for 3 or 4 weeks, he's probably not getting any healthier. It's just a matter of being able to rest it for a couple days before the next game or practice or whatever it may be. But that, to me, does not say, oh, he hasn't missed games, so he's still really good. If you can't play and you have taken up a roster spot that day, or you're on the field and you're not playing at your highest level, that's just as bad. Maybe even worse, because you can't plan for it. You went in all week saying, we'll have Hilton. He's not going to practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever. But we'll have him out there on Sunday. And he pulls his hamstring or makes it worse or re-aggravates or whatever it may be into the first quarter. Now, the Colts don't have him, and I thought I could play him, and he's not out there. So that argument doesn't go very far for me if a guy's been that banged up. And we know, Joe, those soft tissue injuries can pop back up if you've had them before. That's just the name of the game, unfortunately. So to your point, am I that high on Devontae Parker? No. But am I that excited about T.Y. Hilton for the first time in a while? I am not. And I hate saying that, but I'm not. And I don't see how you can be knowing that history. So Hilton for 22, Parker for 22. We'll say this here. Let's do this. We'll take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we'll get into now as things are kicking back off again here in the auction. We're 105 spots? Yeah, 105 spots here so far with Henry Ruggs just coming off the board, Joe, for $6. The brand new Las Vegas Raider, $6 for Henry Ruggs. Deebo Samuel goes for $9, although we don't know when he's going to play again. Matt Breida, a Miami Dolphin now, $11. We'll come back with more coverage here. Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. It is the Kings Classic Auction. All right, we're back here on the live stream, Joe, and you see a couple of, lower tier guys come off the board here after we talked about Parker. Anthony Miller for $8 came on real strong at the end of last season, despite all of the issues there for the Chicago Bears. We were talking to Brad Evans about how they've retooled the offense. Are people kind of overlooking Anthony Miller after the way he finished last season, assuming that things are going to be better at the quarterback position? Maybe
he finished very poorly for me because this is all on me, Matt. You remember my dilemma? He had been outscoring Odell Beckham for like 6 weeks straight.
He was rolling at the end of the year.
And I had him on the bench in week 16, a championship game, for a big screen TV. And then I finally benched Beckham for Anthony Miller, and then he laid an egg in week 16. So that was that's a bad memory for me. But yeah, I wonder if people are overlooking a little bit because I did a show a couple of weeks ago, and my co-host brought up a really interesting point. If we presume Nick Foles is going to be an upgrade over Mitchell Trubisky, which I would think he would be, but he raised an interesting point by saying, if Trubisky wins that job, though, isn't it a good sign that he outplayed Nick Foles? Say what you want about Trubisky, Matt. He was way better in 2018 than he was last year. Yeah, he was okay as opposed to horrible. If we can get decent Trubisky back, this offense probably has a little bit more upside than it showed last year.
Yeah,
and maybe, that is Nick not Foles an endorsement.
Job. Am I even that excited about that? Like, I feel like I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop, though. Like, if Nick Foles wins the job, I'm like, all right, I think we know what we have coming in here. If Mitch Trubisky wins the job, I'll still be like walking on eggshells dealing with Bears players. I feel like that. I'm just going to wait for Trubisky to lose it because he just hasn't shown me enough to get excited about him.
Yeah, I will be stunned if one of these two quarterbacks starts 16 games, by the way.
All right, and we're back here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. It is the Kings Classic Auction. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan with you here. We're having a discussion during the live stream powered by Fantasy Alarm about the quarterback position in Chicago, and if Trubisky wins the job over Nick Foles, then, well, that's a good sign, right? He bid on Nick Foles for the job. You're not going to instill any confidence with me with Mitch Trubisky winning the job because I'll just wait for him to mess it up. But maybe I'm being too hard on young.
I'll be surprised if one of those two quarterbacks starts all 16 games. By the way, Nick Foles, don't tell Eagles fans this because Eagles fans think Carson Wentz is made of paper mache. Nick Foles has never had a healthy 16 games.
Yeah, but they should have kept him, Joe, because just kidding. I know.
Anyway, oh God, that is a topic that we've already spent way too much airtime.
No, we're not doing any more of it. Quarterback position, I want to look at Curtis Patrick from RotoViz, Joe. $3 on Cam, $6 on Josh Allen. I like the spending there. $9. It's upside. You're covered there. This is an interesting laid out team. $9 at the quarterback position. You got your QB1 and Josh Allen. We'll see what happens with Cam. Kenyon Drake for $50. Full season now. Going to be the guy for Arizona. James Conner for $27. You spent $77 on your top two running back spots. DJ Moore for $33. Stephon Diggs for $15. I know he's changing teams, but man, that discount is well built in right there.
He's probably going to be annoying in redraft, Matt. By the way, Curtis also has the Diggs Allen stack. That's a win with them, lose with them stack right there. I mean, I like it in best ball a lot more, but like you said, the league winning upside at that price, yeah, I'll take that. That's a good price.
Stephon Diggs and Deontay Johnson went for the same price. $15. And I know Stephon Diggs is on a new team, and I know when he's not healthy, things usually don't work, but $15 is like, that's a win. That's a big win to me. Stephon Diggs for 15, T.Y. Hilton for 22. Let's put those two back to back. Should Stephon Diggs be that cheap? I say no.
I want Diggs over T.Y. Hilton this year.
Which, by the way, makes this a big win because Kittle was 34 and Andrews for 20. So we spent up a tight end. Like we said, 3 flex spots. 3 flex spots. You can do whatever you want. You spent $54 a tight end. But to make that up, I think he makes up for it, Joe, by getting Diggs for $15. I think that's a nice win there for Curtis Patrick. James Conner is somebody we've talked about. Are you good with the $27 price tag, Joe, in the context of the rest of this team here for Curtis Patrick?
Let me take a look at the
Drake
team
for
here.
50, DJ Moore for 33, Diggs for 15, Kittle and Andrews
I'm not sure I
54.
love the $50 price tag on Kenyon Drake, but I
didn't
really
like that one. Bothers me more.
I really like the 27 for James Conner. I don't like 50 for Kenyon Drake when Edwards-Helaire is going for 43 and Miles Sanders is going for 42. I know that probably doesn't seem that big. And Austin Eckler for 36, which continues to look like one of the best values of the whole draft, even for a player I've struggled with this year. But Connor for 27, Matt, I like that price. I do. I think it's a good price. Again, league-winning kind of upside there with James Conner. When he's been on the field, he has never been anything but a hammer running back one. It's just that, being on the field problem.
Well, all right, let's look at some comparisons. Conner for 27, Le'Veon Bell for 28, Jonathan Taylor for 28, Todd Gurley for 22, David Johnson for 28. I'm just throwing names that probably in the range. Singletary for 19. That one kind of got overlooked. We didn't hit that one. That's a nice price there by Mike Clay, considering what he did at wide receiver.
And here's the thing with Singletary. Everybody in the fantasy industry has decided they're fading Devin Singletary. And I think there is a ton of support for that, given how good Zach Moss is in the passing game.
Sure.
The fact that this is going to be a split. But if that's going to allow you to get Devin Singletary for a lower price, then I'm in on that. Like, I have 0.0 Devin Singletary this year, Matt. And all the best balls I've done, I have not taken him one time. However, at that price, it's a good price. Take advantage of everybody in the room fading the same player.
Mike's going with his philosophy I really like here, and that, all right, Singletary's 19. He might end up being Mike Clay's best running back when week 1 comes around. But Michael Thomas was 47. Chris Godwin was 34. Courtland Sutton was 28. Jarvis Landry for 15. You have an interesting, not project, but a piece in Deebo Samuel for $9 when he hopefully gets healthy. Matt Breed, $11. Evan Ingram for $9. He did really well at wide receiver to me. I'd be thrilled with that 1-2-3 combo. That you get Singletary. Now, can he overspend maybe somewhere else here? By the way, Tom Brady for $5 I think works as well. Might he look at this and say, I could have spent up, Joe, a little bit more at running back? I think that's a possibility. Could he have said I could have gone a little bit higher, a little bit more comfortable there? Or maybe Mike Clay's just saying, you know what? I know the running back position is what it is. I'll take Singletary at that number. I'm happy to build up elsewhere. I do wonder if there was a potential upgrade elsewhere. Was it over Singletary? Maybe was it over Evan Ingram at 9?
Yeah, and Mike's going to have a little bit of an issue here, and I'm going to tell you what it is. And Bob Harris has the hammer at $62. Bob's running backs absolutely blow right now. He's got Zach Moss, Jordan Howard, and Adrian Peterson, but at $62, he has, he has basically double the money of anybody else in the room. Bob is going to be able to pick off running backs here that Mike and Pat Doherty are not going to be able to get because they don't have the capital to get them. So that's going to be a problem right now with Bob Harris. He's going to be able to pay for those kind of upside guys if he so wants them.
Do we have a heck of a lot left at running back, though? That's my question. Is there a lot to go get at this point, Joe? Where are you going at running back?
There's a player from Washington who I think is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, he's off the board. He's gone.
I thought he went.
Yeah, Brad Evans.
He got Antonio Gibson for $10.
Yeah, what is left? Hey, we got to get Bob back on here at some point.
Darrell Henderson, Naheem Hines.
We got to get Bob back on here because Boston Scott's kind of interesting. I got to tell you, Matt,
Raquel Armstead.
Bob keeps leaving money in the draft room every year. We got to get him. We got to get him away from doing that, man.
He's trying to buy his way onto the show again. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't count, Bob. The money does not come with you, unfortunately. Let's do a little comparison here to some other auctions. We haven't checked in on those in quite some time. Let's look at the tight end position here. So Andrews went for 17 here, Joe, in the Blanda draft. Jared Cook for $7, Hunter Henry for $8. Gronk, who we barely talked about, $8. Hayden Hurst for 12. Travis Kelce for 26. $26 for Travis Kelce. That might be the whole steal the whole day. $26 for Travis
And then
Kelce,
Kittle for 27 ain't bad either.
Man,
As I told you,
Darren
man,
Waller
those
for
guys
12,
were
Higbee
top
for
10 wide
5.
receivers.
Ingram for 8. By the way, I will take Tyler Higbee for $5 over Evan Ingram for $8 all day.
Absolutely.
That's a big win right there. Remember, no more.
Tyler Higbee went for 5. Gronk went for 8.
Let's see the other one. We looked at the third auction here. This is the Dawson. Hunter Henry for 8. Kittle for 35. Dallas Goedert for 7. Paying up a little there for him. Hayden Hurst for 12. Ertz for 11. There's a big discrepancy. Gronk for 6. Mark Andrews for 23. Waller for 12. Ingram for 10. Kelce for 29. Mike Gesicki, I haven't mentioned that name at all today. $6 for him. The other tight ends a note. Hawkinson for 7. Jonnu Smith for 7. Now you got to spend up in this third draft to get any of these guys at tight end. Little patience there needs to be practiced in the Dawson draft when it comes to the tight end position.
Yeah,
wow.
The Dawson draft, I actually think, again, I think the best buy of all the tight end. Well, Ertz for 11 is a good buy, but I like Travis Kelce for 29. That's a great price,
yeah,
especially considering how some of these other guys went for.
I come back to the Brown draft. Jonnu Smith for 4. Dallas Goedert for 3. I like this. Howard Bender, Joe, 9 for Hurst, 4 for Jonnu Smith. I think that's a real nice spending on the tight end position there because both of those guys could very well end up in his lineup.
Jonnu Smith's another one of those dumpster diving tight end guys I was talking about where you can get 2 or 3 of these guys and spend like $5 total and probably end up with a starter that you like.
Yep. Let's see here as we look around a little bit more. Here's an interesting one. Bob Lung is going to try to go against the grain here. Kerryon Johnson for 5, Marlon Mack for 4. I don't know if I'm willing to spend $9 on those two guys. The prices are fine. I don't know if I want both of them, and I might just wait longer than getting them.
I like Mack a little bit more, I think. But basically what that is it's kind of a zero RB. Like, hey, if these starters go down, Kerryon might be the starter.
By the way. Yeah, Eckler and Mostert. Combined for $4, which is fine.
Eckler at $36 is one of my favorite buys of this entire draft.
Full point PPR, man. You better believe it.
The problem is I don't know about his volume in the passing game, but I mean, still, that's a great buy at that price.
Who do you want to play quarterback for the Chargers for Austin Eckler?
Philip Rivers.
Yes.
I mean Philip Rivers. But you would think what they are going to do is implement, whether it's Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor, some of what the Ravens have done with Lamar Jackson, because both of those quarterbacks are mobile, and that's going to open up running lanes for Austin Eckler. But we know how much more a target is worth than a carry.
Is Eckler one of the biggest hurt by a change of format? If you're going to half or non-PPR.
Yeah, he is.
From a high-end standpoint.
Matt, I'll be stunned if he catches 90 passes again.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That brings me back because I feel like I thought you were hinting at somebody earlier and it wasn't him. Keenan Allen. No more Phillip Rivers. He'll probably play with multiple quarterbacks this year. $20 for Keenan Allen.
Not bad price, not a bad price, but I think he is.
But
really
still pause there,
by the lack of volume. He's just probably one of those players I'm just not bidding on, because I as much as I love the player, I mean, he has benefited from Phillip Rivers and all that volume.
$20 doesn't scare me though. Now, do I want him when it's him for 20 and Metcalf for 21? I mean, the prices are fine there. You're telling me I'm going to spend $41 on those two guys. I'm okay with it. This team
I
also
like
has
Metcalf a lot
20. More. Yeah, I would like a little bit more there.
How about Jeff Manns, by the way, handcuffing his tight end with Dallas Goedert and getting Goedert for $3? That's pretty. That's
out nicely.
I mean, like,
that's the team.
Honestly,
it's that team. That's the team we're talking about right now, by the way.
Yeah. If I'm Manns, I mean, you never want to root for a player to get hurt, but if Ertz goes down, Goddard's a league winner.
Yeah, but you've spent $20 on Ertz.
Yeah, but you've locked it up.
If he was elsewhere, sure.
Yeah.
You spent $23 on one starter. It's one spot. I don't think you're playing Ertz and Goddard. But I know what you're getting at there. Let's look around here a little bit more. Andy Barron's at tight end. Noah Fant for $2. It's his only tight end.
Good. Great.
It's now he has spent, 20 on Hunt, 29 on Chark. Naheem Hines for 5. I like that Naheem Hines pickup, by the way. We just talked about Austin Eckler, right?
Yeah.
Do you see Naheem Hines maybe becoming somewhat of a favorite for Phillip Rivers if he gets on the field?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want me to be honest, I frankly hope not, because I love Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, right?
That's
you want him to get all those.
Jonathan Taylor to be the guy, but yeah, I think there's a chance, and that's why I think Naheem Hines is a decent enough in a PPR. I mean, he's caught like what 130 balls in his career.
Right. That's a big part of it. Before we grab a break here, I do want to talk about the Los Angeles Rams backfield. Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, Jeff Mans, another handcuff situation. Akers for $20. Darrell Henderson, Joe, for $8. That's a $28 investment in that backfield, which doesn't exactly seem closed off with anybody. I could see really anything happening in that backfield this year.
I think Akers is the best bet. I am very down.
Second round
pick, but he was a rookie.
Yep. They didn't want to touch.
The other thing Jeff could do here, honestly, is scoop up Malcolm Brown for $1.
Yeah, that's what I was looking. He did not go. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, like that's something. I actually, he's been one of like in a deeper best ball. I did a NFFC draft champions the other night. 35 rounds. Malcolm Brown is a great pick in that format.
Just throw him at the end.
He's a coach's favorite. We've seen him vulture touchdowns. Maybe he's the guy who benefits from the COVID offseason.
Yeah, just because I know him. That might be part of it. It's funny that you bring that up because I think like one of my most drafted players last year was Raquel Armstead for the same thought of just get him at the end of every draft.
Mm-hmm.
Now Fournette hung in there better than we expected, but maybe something happened like the last game.
Every draft this year.
What's that?
Oh, you can get Raquel at the end of the draft.
Yeah,
this year.
and I would totally be doing that again. And I know he didn't do much last year. He had that game at the end of the season where he went for like 88 yards and he had the touchdown. Can't say I'm pumped up about Leonard Fournette, just like you feel the same way about him. So yeah, it's another one. Just get him cheap and enjoy that. Mike Williams for $5. I like that one there by Jeff Mans. Not the same situation, but
yeah,
$5.
People hate him now.
They hate him
just
now?
They hate Mike Williams because 2 years ago he was like, what was it? He had like the most ridiculous touchdown luck in the league, and then it was the opposite last year.
Yeah.
But the one thing Tyrod Taylor does well, Matt, better. I think outside of his mobility, his best traits is deep ball. And Mike Williams, he's going to go down there and get it. $5. I know he's not an exciting player, but man, I like that price for Mike Williams.
I like these cheaper buys here by Jeff. Anderson for $8, Mike Williams for $5, Goddard for $3. I think it all makes pretty good sense here. All right, we will come back with more. Seen some quarterbacks come off the board. Interesting names here, second quarterbacks, and how you address the quarterback position. Dom Cinerino just did something. He spent $5 on two very interesting names that, once again, if you said this a year ago, you go, wait, what the heck are you talking about? That's not a thing. That doesn't make any sense. It does today, and we'll talk about that much more when we come back. We have more coverage of the Kings Classic Auction. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan coming back. Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And we pick it back up here on the live stream, powered by Fantasy Alarm. And we're getting into it here, Joe. We are, how many nominations? We are 135 nominations deep in this one. Rob Gronkowski just comes off the board at $6. It doesn't feel like, and maybe this could end up being an industry versus home league draft kind of thing. It doesn't feel like anybody's getting faked out by the name value of Rob Gronkowski, at least in industry drafts so far.
Yeah.
And $6 is fine.
Yeah, $6 is great. My concern with Rob Gronkowski, Matt, is he plays essentially on third down and in the red zone this year. Now, those are the calorie-rich targets, right? For touchdowns. But they have every incentive to limit Gronk's snaps this year. But on the other hand, the snaps he gets are going to be in position where he can score touchdowns.
Gronk is a best ball tight end to me more than a snake draft tight end. 6, 6, and 8 are the prices in the three auctions he went for. So eight's probably too much. I don't love 6. I can deal with 6. I'm also not trying to go get him either. It's fine.
Yeah, that's a fine price. I mean, I think people are understanding they're not paying for 2013 Gronk. Like I get that, but $6 is fine. I'll tell you this: I'd rather have Noah Fant for $2.
100%. I'm a big Noah Fant fan. Was there last year. I think there's that big chance to come through this year. How about Tevin Coleman for $6? Colby Conway's going to grab him behind Kamara, Derrick Henry, Duke Johnson on the roster for $4. Tevin Coleman, Joe, was great. Was a ghost. Probably more of a tease than anything, but for $6, I'm okay with it because you're investing on a good offense and a good backfield.
I mean, that's just a great job. See, Colby Conway, actually, he's got 2 really good running backs on this team,
right?
Aaron, Derrick Henry. He's got guys in Tevin Coleman and Duke Johnson that Bob Harris and Mike Clay and Pat Doherty probably would want a piece of, like guys who have a chance to outproduce their cost pretty significantly.
And we're back at Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio's coverage of the Kings Classic Auction, taking you till midnight Eastern. Thank you for being with us. 3rd straight year doing this. Always fun. A learning experience, hopefully, for you listening, but us as well. Focusing on 1 auction, but 3 going on. Follow along with everything at Sirius XM Fantasy. If you're not following, what have you been doing? You should be doing that. Check out the live video stream of it as well. And pick-by-pick coverage of all of our drafts and auctions, not only this one, the one we did earlier today, the Kings Classic Snake Draft, and all of our drafts and auctions we have produced in 2020. You can get it whenever you want with the Sirius XM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. $200 cap in this full point PPR. 16 roster spots will be filled. 10 of those will be starters, a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and the very important 3 flex spots, which can be filled by a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. That means you could start 5 running backs. You could start 6 wide receivers. You can start 4 tight ends. All of that comes into play, and the flex spot with 3 flex spots gives you the ultimate flexibility with not only how you put your starting lineup together, but Joe, as always, you have flexibility in an auction, even more so when you can build them basically however you want it. We are seeing a variety of roster building in this auction with these flex spots. And as we look and see who's got some, so what's the hammer still right now? Is it Corey with
Bob
20?
Harris?
Oh no, Bob's got 58. And
Matt, here's the problem.
What are we down to?
Who are
Bob?
you spending it on?
Let's look at what's left. Because there's Madison, Boston Scott.
AJ
Dillon, Raquel Armstead. Yeah, but not when you have
58.
Jordan Howard, Adrian Peterson, and am I missing a running back?
Zach Moss.
Oh,
I actually like, by the way.
Damian
By
Harris.
the way, I actually like all of 3 of those guys at cost, but Bob is going to kick himself at the end of this draft because he's going to be like, holy crap, I could have had, I mean, I'm even going to pick out an unsexy name, but I could have had Le'Veon Bell on this team and at least give him something. Yeah, Bob's going to be kicking himself at the end of this draft. Bob, what are you doing?
Yeah, Bob,
gotta spend the money
by this one. Hey, what did James White go for? I'm looking for that name. Oh, $11.
$11.
By Brad Evans. I like it.
Great
$11.
price.
Probably the safest guy right now for the Patriots backfield.
The Cam signing has just. Look. Do I expect James White to produce in the Patriots offense the way he did when Brady was there? I don't. But the Cam signing just raised the ceiling of that offense to me, Matt. It really did. The Patriots were one of those teams I just didn't want to target anybody when I thought it was going to be Stidham. I'm like, what? But now you can talk me into N'Keal Harry, one of my favorite late round picks. Well, Damian Harris is obvious.
He's still out there, by the way. Damian Harris.
So is Lamar Miller. So does Tony Michel, by the way. One of the guys that has become a favorite of mine to draft late, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Mohamed Sanu. Because, it is obvious, Matt. He played like 1 healthy game with the Patriots, and he caught 10 passes in that game. And then it was the high ankle, and it was all over. Big body receiver, physical. Cam Newton's had success throwing to those guys.
Yeah, I think there is something to that. Bob is going to be after Damian Harris. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's got to go after him. maybe Malcolm Brown, maybe Alexander Madison. That's a I would be throwing money at those guys. And, you don't want to just chuck it around like it's not, because there's not much else. I mean, I'm looking around. CeCe Lamb, let's see, Mike Gesicki, Robbie Anderson, Deshaun Jackson, Rashad Perriman, N'Keal Harry.
There's so many appealing receivers left. Oh, see, here's a good running back buy for Bob. DeAndre Washington for $3.
That's a go. Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, but
I'm going to look back and go, I spent 3 for him, and I could have spent 15 or 18 for somebody else. There's just there's not enough talent left on the board to spend what he has.
Yeah,
got 6 spots left. I'm sure he'll cover it. I'm sure he has ways to explain what happened. Or Bob's realistic and will tell you that he didn't do a good job. He might. He did that before. Not everything is beautiful. Go ahead.
Speaking of Bob, every time my wife sees Sean Astin on TV, she calls him Bob now. Like, even when he's in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, because of Justified. No, wait.
No, because of Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. Yeah. Oh, poor Bob.
Yeah, poor Bob.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Bob in Justified is Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah. That's
the constable. The constable. Yeah, but that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, so she calls Patton Oswalt Bob too. So she's like a toddler. She's like, oh, it's Bob. Like my niece calls everybody like the same name. Anyway, there we go. My story about Bob.
Thank you. Your Bob story. Do you have a Bob story, folks? You could share it with us at SiriusXM Fantasy, or you could just.
There's 2 Bobs in this draft, by the way. Bob Long and Bob Harris.
Yes, you are correct. Let's see. Who haven't we checked out? Okay. Let's look at. Oh, here's an interesting team. Jim Coventry from RotoWire. Russell Wilson for $9. Gardner Minshew for $1. So there's $10 right there. Dalvin Cook for 60. David Johnson for 28. AJ Brown for 29. Odell for 29. Hollywood Brown for 23. First time we're bringing up Hollywood Brown's name right now, which I'm kind of surprised.
23
I'm a big fan of that number.
A good price. That's a good price. I want to look at him in the other 2 drafts, because the other 2 drafts, Matt, the price was even better. Rotoballer Dennis Clausen got him for $19, and our guy Tom Brawley got him for $19 in the Dawson division. So I mean, you got $23. I'm not down on that price at all, but I mean, that's a good price. Everybody on planet Earth is in on Hollywood Brown at this stage. Everybody. You have nobody who's out.
But at that price, you know what? Maybe they're not, Joe. That price should be higher. If everybody was in on them, I would expect it to be.
Yeah, that's a fair. And I mean, everybody. It seems like everybody likes Hollywood. At least every fantasy site I know likes Hollywood Brown. He's my most drafted player in fantasy. Maybe the general public isn't in on him, but they should be. They will be shortly.
There goes Alex Madison for $5 to Mike Clay. So he is. I don't want to say punted, but he's pretty much punted on the running back position. Singletary for 19, Breida for 11, Madison for 5. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to make a couple. See, here's my other question, Matt. Where's Bob on these bids?
He's been on every one of them. He should win every one of them, not because he can bid them up, because he can.
And he also needs.
He can. He needs them. That's what I mean. He needs them. So what? It's not overpaying if you need them. It might look bad after the fact.
You need to go full 0 RB and take 7 like handcuff type guys and try to and hope that one or 2 of them hits. That's what you got. If you're going to be in that situation, that's what you got to do, Matt. You got to lean into it. You got to take handcuff type guys who, if somebody gets hurt, they become a slam dunk RB1 or RB2.
Bob can throw the heaviest starts right now. That's with the hammer at $55, and the next closest is Corey Parson at 24. Bob can throw all of these heavy darts out there right now and afford them. Whether that means overpaying or not, it doesn't matter at this point. The money needs to be spent. So let's see. Let's look around here at some other ones that have come up. I'll look over here, Joe, at Bob Lung. Golden Tate for $4 is another cheapie. What's that receiving core look like right now for the Giants in terms of the price?
No.
So there's Golden Tate for $4. Sterling Shepard went for $8. And
Slayton was 15.
That was this one, right? Yeah. Slayton was $15 to that one. All right. So it's such an interesting team. Slayton did go? Didn't he go? He did go. Okay. That is such an interesting offense to me because I see potential. I don't think they're a great team. I think Jones will be better. You have a home run player in Saquon Barkley. You have Ingram coming back. It feels like it sets up better, Joe, for Daniel Jones than it does for the receivers that they could all steal from each other. Because no one's a home run guy, right? There's no like lead dog of the wide receivers for the New York Giants. I don't think there is, especially now with Slayton, emerging as he did last year. It feels like it sets up best for Daniel Jones versus anybody else outside of Saquon Barkley, of course. Which is why $2 for Daniel Jones, and if he finishes like
Golden
11
Tate for $4 is great. Oh my God, Corey Parson got CeeDee Lamb.
Of course he did. $5, baby.
I mean, it's a good price. The Golden Tate for $4 though is the best buy of that group, Matt, because as boring as he is, he's cheap.
Right. But who cares? Slayton went for, let's see, Slayton's off the board, so he is off the board already. I'm just trying to see where he went in terms of his spot. Bob Harris got him. All right, I apologize. I missed that before. So interesting that a guy like that goes, was he the most expensive? He was the most expensive of that entire group, believe it or not, after all of that. A couple of spots here to still be filled as we're looking around here. Look at Curtis Patrick, Joe, although it looks like he's going to fill this wide receiver spot right now. He's got a lot of spots to fill. All right, so Allen for 6. Yep. All right, so Moore and Diggs. He doesn't spend much up at wide receiver, but once again, you look at the full team and you see Kittle for 34 and Andrews for 20. That's where that money is going to end up. How about this team? Here's one we haven't looked at in a while. Dave Richard, Joe, spent early. McCaffrey for 66, Barkley for 62. So what do the receivers look like when you make those kind of purchases? Cooper Kupp for 26, Lockett for 22, Gage for $1, Higbee for 7 at tight end, Gallman for $1, and Matt Ryan for 5.
Kupp and Lockett pretty good. Gage is your 3 right now. That's his 3 right now. I actually kind of like Gage this year, but I mean, when you're gonna have to go dumpster diving here. But you know that when you spend $128 on 2 players, Matt, you know you're gonna have to go dumpster diving.
I gotta go back to I teased it earlier. Dom Cintorino spends $5 on Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow. Rodgers for 3, Burrow for 2.
Pretty good.
I'm good with that because you spent, this is a team that balanced it a little bit more. $5 a quarterback, okay. Edwards-Helaire for 43, Le'Veon for 28, Devontae Adams at 43. So there's your stack. Thielen for 30, Ruggs for 6, Ebron for $1, Fournette for 30. So if I look at that, I don't think I need to spend, Joe, on Bell and Fournette. I don't think I want those guys on the same team. I'm okay with maybe one of them, but I don't think I want that much invested in Le'Veon Bell and Leonard Fournette.
Matt, can I bring up another point? Because I feel we are unfairly malaising Bob Harris here.
Uh-oh.
I just went into the draft room. He has Chris Carson on this team.
Oh, we need to note
that. Because I was looking for...
And Chris Carson too, doesn't he?
And
so we're missing a couple play in there.
We're missing 2 key players for Bob. Poor Bob Harris. We're getting yelled at. We're yelling at Bob.
Yeah, that's got to be updated. So if you see that as you're following along, all right, those are 2 important players to this team. And his receivers are fine. Woods, Cooks, and Hilton, and then he's got Kelsey. But those names need to be added to the group. So he has Slayton, which is good. So that receiving core looks pretty solid now.
Yeah. It's a good receiving core.
Running back group is still not great, but it's better.
And we're yelling at Bob for not bidding on all these running backs. So he has a lot of money. He has a lot of money tied up elsewhere that we did not see. So,
yeah. All right. So it looks better.
All right, Bob. Bob
in there.
We apologize to Bob Harris.
We got you, Bob. No problem. And the numbers comes down. So the hammer, I don't think is there anymore, which is okay. Yeah, everybody's under $20 now. I think.
And I'm also looking
sitting at 18 with Wentz. Miles Sanders. Oh, we haven't talked about this team at all. Hold on a sec. Let's take a look at this one very quickly. Pat Daugherty, Roto World. Wentz for 4. No backup right now. Miles Sanders for 42. Tariq Cohen for 9. No other running backs. But he's got DeAndre Hopkins for 37. Tyreek Hill for 46. Terry McLaurin for 28. That's a very strong wide receiver group. An excellent wide receiver group. Gronk for 6. Mecole Hardman for 4. So he covers himself with Hill. N'Keal Harry at 3, and Austin Hooper at 3. So not a lot of interest in the running back group there for Pat Doherty. But, Joe, I really like the way the rest of this team is laid out here. I like the Gronk-Hooper combo. I'm okay with that. He's got his number 1 in Miles Sanders. He went cheap at quarterback, and he loaded up on a really good wide receiver group.
I'd actually don't mind, by the way, Tariq Cohen, if you're going kind of modified 0 RB as your number 2 in a full PPR.
No, I'm okay with that. I want to see how he's used. He's a headache, though. I mean, the Bears are a headache. Hopefully that – you know what I would like from the Bears, other than just being a more consistent team, is can we well define the – can they be a better defined team for fantasy? Because it felt like they were runs. Oh, it's this guy now. It's this, and it's been like that for a little while. I would just like to know roles and to stick to these roles. And if you have David Montgomery, you don't have to be asking for touches or what his role is going to be. Or there's Cohen for a few games and he goes away. Just lock it down. That would be nice. That would be much easier. All right, we're going to come back with more coverage of the Kings Classic auction here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Matt Camp and Joe Dolan back after this. Let's pick it back up on the live video stream powered by Fantasy Alarm. Bob Harris down to $7 now, so everything is handled there in terms of
Bob.
Chris Carson for 31, Darius Slayton for 15. So there's $46 that was not accounted for, and 2 pretty darn good players. So that's covered now. We got that down. We know that now. That is covered here. I want to look at Joe here. Howard Bender's team once again. Daniel Jones and Baker cover the quarterback position for a grand total of $4. Mixon and Jacobs, 49 and 48. Also has Melvin Gordon for 26. Jerick McKinnon, I remember that name, for $3. Marvin Jones for 9. Allen Robinson for 34. Dylan Ragnor for 7. Hayden Hurst for 9. Kind of all over the place. Not in a bad way, just kind of all over the place. I would
Jalen Rager for 7 is a league-winning kind of pick, by the way.
I would like a little bit more at wide receiver on this team. Like I was like, oh,
yeah,
you tight end.
What you're doing here, obviously, Howard. I think Howard. He said it when we had him on air. He said Melvin Gordon was an impulse buy. I bet you he'd want that one back.
You want that back?
To spend it on.
You know what I would like
receiver.
to make that? I would like to make that a Hollywood Brown, something like
that. Or split it between a couple of players. Like. You could get, let's see here, Jarvis Landry for $11 for $15
or something like that.
And he could have had Zach Moss for $10, and but like I mean, it's going to be top heavy. And like the thing is though, if Jalen Rager hits, then his team's going to be in really good shape. He just needs him to hit.
All right. Hey, we're back here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. 3rd year and continuing coverage of the Kings Classic. We are in the auction. If you missed our draft earlier, well, go back and check it out. Do that on demand. You can do that with all of our drafts here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Analysis, coverage of all the picks, not only the Kings Classic Snake Draft we did earlier, full point PPR, as these auctions are, but all of our drafts, all of our auctions we have produced in 2020, and you can do that whenever you want with the Sirius XM app by searching Fantasy Drafts, just like you can do with everything on this channel, on the Sirius XM app, on Sirius 210, XM87, or however you listen at home. You are tuned into the Kings Classic auction with Matt Camp and Joe Dolan, as we are seeing now, Joe, it's your dart throws, it's your guys that you might like. It's spending when you can. This is a time, Joe, that if you do have a little bit more money, whether it's because of bad budgeting or just maybe you got enough values and you have some money saved, you can overspend for guys you really want. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes, like, people look at the auctions after and go, why did Sammy Watkins go for $10? That's ridiculous. Well, if you have the $10, why did Paris Campbell go for $7? Well, Corey Parson had the money to spend it. And if you want a guy bad enough, you go get him. Now, could that have been spent elsewhere and you have, buyer's remorse about, I'm not going a little higher for certain players? Sure. But when you have it, go get your guys.
Yeah, exactly, Matt. Left. Like, Corey Parson might look at this team and say, man, I wish I had allocated that $10 to another player, so I could have gotten a better player at this spot. His number one quarterback is Teddy Bridgewater. He's a Cowboys fan. Does he wish he could have taken $7 away from Sammy Watkins and paid up to go get Dak Prescott at $9 or $10? Probably. But if you have the weight at the end of the draft, why risk losing a player? Nobody's going to care that it looks like you overspent for Sammy Watkins at the end of a draft. Like, who cares? You want the
None
player.
of this stuff matters.
You have the weight.
Matters.
Go get him.
Yeah.
Go get him.
You get to week 1. You get to week 2. Nobody's going to care what you spent. Maybe you think about it now. None of that stuff matters because you're going to cut some of these guys anyway. You're going to move on from some of these guys. You're going to trade some of these guys, whatever it may be. None of that stuff's going to matter. I want to look at his receiving corps. Remember, he waited. Corey was the last one to get on the board today, much like he did last year. And last year he cleaned up. Ridley for 30, Galladay for 31, Amari Cooper for 25. Joe, from a price standpoint and from a 1, 2, 3 standpoint, I don't care what order you put those guys in. I like that group a lot.
I really do like this group. And then you also have, add CeeDee Lamb, of course you did to it.
That's okay. For $5, go for it.
Yeah, for $5. And Preston Williams, great buy for $5. Paris Campbell, like I said earlier, I think he's just a guy who, maybe he's forgotten after a lost rookie season, but I think there's a lot of talent there. Yeah, I like this group of players. I don't love Gurley at 22.
Gurley's my big glaring problem. Yeah, I would have liked to go elsewhere with that $22.
J.K. Dobbins is a guy you're gonna like. Here's my thing with J.K. Dobbins. Corey gets him for $13. I think J.K. Dobbins, Matt, this year is either a $5 player or a $40 player value. Do you understand what I'm saying? If Mark Ingram gets hurt, J.K. Dobbins is an RB1. An RB1. If Mark Ingram doesn't get hurt, J.K. Dobbins might be useless. So I think $13 is probably kind of splitting the difference on that.
He would be a bench guy you never know when to use.
Yeah.
One of those kind of players.
But if Mark Ingram goes down,
if not,
he's in your lineup.
Can win you a league if that's
Miles Sanders style.
Yeah,
Miles was the second half guy last year. So yeah, John Hanson's been saying he doesn't want to draft J.K. Dobbins this year, but he's already calling him a first-round pick next year. And I think that's kind of a fair take to have.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it does make sense. Let's move over to Dom Cinerino's team. Burrow and Rodgers. We talked about that. $5 total. Edwards-Helaire for 43, Le'Veon Bell for 28, Fournette for 30. Like I said earlier, I don't like both of those guys in the same team. I don't want to invest $58 in two guys. I don't.
Yeah,
That's it. It's just the context of where they stand. If I end up at one of them, okay. I don't really love the price tag for either, but I don't want them both. And not when the receivers are fine. He went cheap at tight end. We could see that. We got Irv Smith for $1. He's Eddie Brown for $1. All right, that's fine. Devontae for 43. By the way, Devontae Adams for $43 is a great number.
Yeah, it's great.
He's a first-round player, and he's still going. I don't get it. It's just that's one of those where you need to cover the position.
Right. I don't love the money allocation in terms of players, but I don't dislike the strategy. Like like you said, I guess I could live with one of Bell or Fournette.
Don't need them both.
My choice would be Bell. Having both of those on that team. This team just looks a little weird to me because I adore Edwards-Helaire, and Fournette and Bell are just kind of to me. Maybe that just says something about how tantalized by upside I am. But I just don't see it with Bell and Fournette.
Here's what I would have tried to do instead. And this is easy. This is 2020 vision. Instead of spending 28 on Bell and 30 on Fournette, you have a rookie in a great spot in Edwards-Helaire. Okay. You're going to take on maybe a little risk there. I don't really believe in it too much because he's on the Chiefs. I would have spent up for a Derrick Henry instead and gone cheaper on the third running back. Because now I have a big-time hammer, a guy who's absolutely touching the ball all the time, along with a player who's in a great offense who I expect to touch the ball all the time with lots of upside. Instead of Bell and Fournette, who I think have too many warts on bad teams. So instead of splitting that $58 over two players, maybe it's $58 spent over two players, but a $40 player and an $18 player. And I think you might get more bang for your buck if that's the case. That's 2020. That's easy to say after the fact. And he might disagree. And I understand that as well. Do I want to spend $58 on two players in general I'm shaky about, and two players I don't necessarily love their teams either. That's the invest in good teams argument that many of us have had a lot of the time. All right, We're going to come back with a little bit more as the back ends of these rosters are being filled out. Dave Richard with $10 has the hammer to show you where things are at as we're getting into the bench spots here of these teams. And we're going to come back here and get in our last segment, believe it or not, of our coverage of this year's Kings Classic auction. More to come. Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. All right, picking it back up here on the live stream, powered by a Fantasy Alarm. So now, Joe, we're getting more of these kind of dollar back-end guys here at the end of the auction. But I want to check in on the other auctions here to see some of these other cheap prices or potential values that could be sticking around here. There's another one. Mike Williams goes for $8 in this auction. He went for $5 in the other one. Just looking around here, CD Lamb goes for $5 in another auction. That's another one. Wentz goes for $6 on a team that has Russell Wilson for wow. So here's a big difference. True North Fantasy Football spends $15 on Wilson and $6 on Wentz. That's a $21 investment in your quarterback position. I don't know if I need to do that with those two guys.
Nah, I don't know about that. Yeah.
Not a bad team, though, by the way.
Kurt Holiday does the same, similar. Kyler Murray for 15 and Drew Brees for $4. Interesting. Yeah, no, not a bad team there.
I get into the $15 range at quarterback, I'm $1 on the next guy. If I
draft one at all, Matt.
I don't need to spend more than that. Yeah. $15-$16. Although I like this team is interesting here. Russell Wilson and Wentz for 21 total. Kamara for 57. Le'Veon Bell for 18. There's a nice number for Le'Veon Bell.
That's a great number for Le'Veon Bell.
How about this? Hopkins for 37, Lockett for 21, Landry for 12, Goddard for 7, Breida for 10, Hawkinson probably too much at 7, but a nice cheap one with Damian Harris for 3. I would like a little bit more, Joe, out of either the Landry spot at wide receiver 3 or the Goddard spot in the top tight end position. Yeah. But even with that's where instead of spending $21 on Wilson and Wentz, maybe that's $15 on Wilson and $1 on the quarterback, and that $5 goes towards a better tight end than Dallas Goedert at 7, which is not a bad number, but maybe a little bit more stability from the get-go. There's another team here. You mentioned African Fantasy Football. Kyler Murray for 15, Brees for 4, Singletary at 17, Dobbins for 19, Raheem Mostert for 18, Phillip Lindsay for 3, and then wide receiver, you got Godwin for 29, Metcalf for 21, DJ Moore for 29, Darius Slayton for 10, and Hayden Hurst for 12, and Brandon Cooks for 15. This is a very interesting draft, Joe. Heavy at wide receiver, but pretty good values for Singletary at 17 and Mostert at 18. Maybe a little bit more money could have been spent somewhere else at running back, but an interesting roster construction here by Kurt Holiday.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't know how much I love paying up twice, at the quarterback spot again, but
could have saved elsewhere. Yeah.
Throwing some interesting darts at running back, no doubt about that.
All right. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. All right, final segment here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio of the third year of coverage of the Kings Classic. And we talked about the draft earlier today. And if you want to go back and check that out, you can listen to it on demand wherever you are with the Sirius XM app by searching Fantasy Drafts. Hear all about that from earlier today. But right now, we are talking about the auction. We were just comparing some of the values and different roster constructions in the other auctions that we are following. And you can follow all of this if you aren't already, and you should be at Sirius XM Fantasy. Before we finish up here, I want to say thank you to everybody who helped put this together. Bob Lung, as always, for running the show. Brad Evans, of course, our producers, Ani, Bennett, Dan, Jason, engineering the show, Matt Deutsch, Rob Tuzet, everybody, and you guys for joining us as well. Always fun to do these auctions. Not only I hope that you guys learn what we learn as well. These are very sharp auctions and drafts, and you can kind of see how this all shakes out if you've never done an auction before. Man, these are great ways to jump in and see how much fun it can be, and different ways you could put these rosters together, especially, Joe, with a starting lineup that has 3 flex spots. You always have that flexibility any way to build your roster any way you want in an auction.
Love it.
But with the 3 flex spots, you can really take anything you want. If you want to go in and say, I'm going after 5 wide receivers, you could do so. If you want to be like Curtis Patrick and get George Kittle for $34 and Mark Andrews for $20, those are still smart investments. Having this flexibility, I would say, Joe, get rid of your kickers, get rid of your defenses, get at least 2 flex spots in there, especially in a year like this where there's a lot of volatility with not having your off season, with things that could change during the season. I think this is a year more than ever, Joe, to include at least 2 flex spots, maybe 3, as we're doing in these auctions in these leagues this year for a Kings Classic.
I just love having more options, Matt. And if you're into super flex, you can throw one of those in there. I know that it scares some people because it completely changes. It turns the draft upside down. But I mean, having these flex spots, Matt, I mean, have we ever regretted in a league? Like, I'll tell you one thing. We're in a league together, Matt, the big play scoring league. Have we ever regretted like adding more flex spots or subtracting kickers from the equation?
And points. We love points. I don't want to do that's too many points. What do you mean? Yeah. It's fantasy football. It's supposed to be fun. It's an offensive friendly league. Okay. If you haven't come to terms with that over the last 10 years, you better do so now. Embrace that. Do you want to be rooting for a kicker or do you want to be rooting for a running back? Nothing against kickers. Nothing against any of those people. Sorry about the defenses. You can go play IDP if you care about defense that much. I would much rather be rooting for a running back or a wide receiver to make a big play than a kicker to maybe get an opportunity. That could drive me nuts, especially if you take away points for kickers.
Yeah, I just I don't like doing that at all, Matt. I just don't like. I've never regretted it. I understand like some people. I don't like grinding the waiver wire for kickers. I don't like grinding the defenses are a little different. Like playing the matchups. Like I have leagues where I've dropped the kicker, but not the defense. But Matt, they just drafting players that are fun. I tell you one place where I really hate drafting kickers and defense. This is in best ball. I just hate.
Oh, what a waste of time. Waste a roster spot. Let me do my homework and hit on one of those rookies. One of those
especially
players.
You wait 8 hours for a pick and you're like, oh, I got to take a defense here. Oh, it's just like it's a lot more fun. These 3 flex spots are great. And you know what happens when you have 3 flex spots? More players who are fringe players get in the lineups and it's fun to follow them and try to improve them. And, it's like, fantasy sometimes isn't fun when you can't tank your lineup, Matt. This is just a great format.
The flip side of that is people saying, well, then I don't have to make hard lineup decisions. That's not necessarily true because you still have to hit the waiver wire and find those guys. And maybe you say, oh, look at all these spots I have. I can't get it wrong if I only have to start 2 running backs and I have 3 flex spots. Hey, guess what? Work hard. Put the best possible roster together. You shouldn't be winning. You shouldn't go, I have the best team. I can't play them. If you have that good of a team, I want to see those guys in my lineup. I don't want to say, I got to cut this guy because I've done too much work. I've gotten that far ahead of the game. You should be rewarded, especially this year, for having the best roster. That's why I cut bench spots down. That league we were just talking about, we have like 4 bench spots. I want the lineup to matter. If you want to make it tougher in terms of lineup, then cut the bench down. Yeah. Have a big starting lineup and cut the bench down. Go ahead, Joe. I know you saw something
Matt,
here. I felt intrigued.
I'm gonna just talk about a player who has freaking 9 lives. How about the sudden relevance of Adrian Peterson? Again, I mean, I don't think it's going to be sexy because he's been so game script dependent, much better in wins than losses recently, when at least with the football team. But he goes for $5 in the Brown to Bob Harris. Bob, he's your number 3 running back. I am so sorry we were yelling at you for 15 minutes and when your roster wasn't showing up properly. He goes for $4 to Drew Davenport in the Blanda division. And our guy, Zero RB Brawley, gets him for $8 in the Dawson division. Adrian Peterson is relevant in the year 2020, Matt, after the release of Darius Geis.
Yeah, he is. We'll see how that changes for the Washington football team. If it does at all, who knows? I don't know if it's going to change. And you did mention there, hold on a second. You did mention there, where did he go? $10? Was that what I saw there? Yeah, Antonio Gibson, their 3rd round pick, of course. Bryce Love last year, nothing happening. They did sign Peyton Barber and J.D. McKissick. I don't think that really matters that much, but some names to keep an eye on just in case. Gibson, Joe, third-round pick this year. He did go for $10 to Brad Evans. I like that selection. It makes a lot of sense. But the top two backs for Washington's backfield cost you $15 total. So it's not going to cost you much to invest in a backfield that has question marks. That's a nice thing about that is it's not like you had to invest in that team.
Yep.
They're not good. You don't know what's going to happen. It looks like Peterson, and it probably will be. I would assume Ron Rivera will stick with Adrian Peterson.
At least at the beginning of the year, yeah.
But it would be worth for $5, even if it doesn't work out. Who cares? So good job by Bob Harris there. There, Bob. We're coming back around. You did a good job on that one. Let's take a look at. Oh, here's the team. Colby Conway. I haven't talked about this much. Deshaun Watson for $10. Tannehill for $1. Kamara for $60. Henry for $42. Julio for $44. Anthony Miller for $8. Justin Jefferson for $7. Jared Cook for $2. Tevin Coleman for $6. So big spending there at running back, Joe, in the top wide receiver spot. But everything else, kind of value plays outside of Deshaun Watson. I do wonder if you would think more about an upgrade somewhere else at wide receiver or tight end.
Yeah, a kind of modified zero wide receiver because he has a hammer in Julio and then a bunch of like wide receiver 5 type of guys with Miller, Justin Jefferson, Hunter Renfrow. I wonder if you could get Colby on the horn if he would say, man, I really wish I went after like Robert Woods and DK Metcalf for the same price that I got Julio for.
Thinking the same thing there. All right. Well, if you missed any of this, you can go back and check out not only this auction, but our Kings Classic snake draft coverage. Hear it on demand with the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Drafts, where you can find all of our drafts from 2020. Thank you all of you for joining us here today. For Joe Dolan, I'm Matt Camp. This has been the Kings Classic auction on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.